Good evening, everyone. We're back in open session. So to begin, could we please pledge allegiance to the flag? So the first item is to approve the agenda. Do we have a motion?
I move that we approve the agenda.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion about the agenda? All in favor?
Aye.
Special recognition, introduction of new district employees. Is that Dan, is that you?
Thank you. I don't actually see any of our new staff members here, I don't believe, and testament to everybody being busy at the beginning of the school year, but I think we have.
Did anyone tell them to come?
Yeah, there was an email sent out by Karen Lamb, inviting people, but we can try that again and we'll see if for next meeting, if we can get folks here, but obviously everybody getting started with the school year could just be it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Input from the public regarding items not on the open agenda, and that would be Casey.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Excellent, sweet. I just wanted to check in about the fine arts real quick. First, I wanted to thank the Alumni Association. They donated something, $20,000 to the theater at Annalee to help with lights and maintenance. So that'll help our dance classes perform a little safer there and update many of the lights and things that will last for quite a long time. And I'm very grateful for that donation, as I know that the drama and the dance and theater and stagecraft are as well. In addition to that, with Prop 28, it's been really fantastic as a whole department because instead of kind of begging and borrowing for donations and things, in addition to the regular donations we have, we're able to use Prop 28 funds to maintain and repair a lot of the things that we haven't been able to use. So instead of, for example, if I have a broken saxophone, just like, oh, I hope someone donates to get it fixed. It's something we can have when a student wants it or needs access to it, it's ready to go. And it's been really nice because we've been able to have that across the department. Also, one other fun thing that we were able to do at the first football game, the dance and cheerleader, cheer team and band were able to do a little halftime performance all together, which I think is the first time it's happened in a long time. And I know definitely the first time since dance, cheer, and band has done something post-COVID. It was really fantastic to do that. And it's really great to see all the students across all the arts really dive into things. So I just wanted to kind of bring your attention to those things. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Casey. It's great. Yes. Do you have a comment you want to make for something that's not on the agenda?
Yes, I do.
Okay,
Is that okay with you, Louis?
it's okay with me.
Okay, great. Thank you for allowing me to speak. Hi, my name is Vicki Miller and I'm still Vicki Miller. I appreciate you giving me a couple minutes to speak. I was just mentioning to Dale that I have a lot of people coming up to me and asking me questions about what's going on here and when we'll hear an update about the community school. And lots of questions that I can't answer, questions about AG and will kids be able to graduate and go to a four-year university? Dale was mentioning that's kind of not what this is set up for. So I guess my questions, and I'm not allowed to ask questions, but my comments are more, can you please inform us when the next meetings will be and when we'll be able to get more information about what's happening at school? And I appreciate that. Thank you.
Great question. Can we just
Can you clarify, Chris?
respond with like?
I've got it. That's basically what my whole suture point is about. So just give me a
We're
moment.
going to address that. And it's a great question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is Loretta here yet?
Yes, geez.
Loretta.
Sorry, I went to the wrong spot. Hi, I'm Loretta from the Annalee Alumni Association, and I have a couple of updates that I want to share with all of you about our busy summer. We agreed with Jenny to pay for the repairs of the big white Annalee gate that goes down to the stadium. We haven't got the bill for that yet, but it's happening. We donated $20,000 to the Annalee Theater to do improvements for sound, lights and some other stuff. We got a message from the music teacher that he was in need of some guitars, and we put the message out to our alumni, and I think he got 15 to 20 guitars finally. He said, don't have anybody send me any more, I'm fine. The second thing we're celebrating this year is 100 years of Annalee football. 1923 was the very first football game, and it didn't do very well that year. And what we have done is we have special logos that are on every football player's helmet, JV and varsity. We have a logo, special logo on the front of the press box. We have 3 special banners that are hung around the stadium. One has the years of the championship teams. One has the names of professional football players that attended Amley. And one has all of the head coaches' names for the last 100 years. We have the announcer give a special paragraph before each home game that gives a little bit of history. The first game, he told about the first year of Amley football and the scores that were not very good. One game was like 98-0. We were not the 98. And then next week or tomorrow, Friday, he's going to be reading a paragraph of why Amley High School's field is named Carlson Field. I also have written a story that will be in Sebastopol Living Magazine about the 100 years of Amley football. And if you live in the Sebastopol zip code area, that will come free to you. But it also gets a copy or 2 to the school. Oh, and the Boosters Club is selling commemorative 100-year sweatshirts if anybody's interested. I think they're $50 each. We've decided that we're going to postpone our Vietnam Memorial until next season because I've gotten in contact with 6 of the 7 families. They are thrilled and they are so appreciative that their families have not been forgotten. And I've met with a couple of big-time veterans about what is the proper wording because we want it to be perfect. And once we get the final artwork into the engraver, I didn't realize for a bronze plaque, it takes 5 to 6 weeks for it to be done, and then we have to have it installed. So by the time that ends, football season will be over for this year. And that's our biggest events, our football games. We want a lot of people to be there. So we're going to postpone it until the first week of first home game of next season. And I've already contacted all those families and they're fine with that. We have our next event is our Amley Sports Hall of Fame. Will be happening the weekend of October 25th and 26th. We are inducting the entire football team of 2012, which was the winningest team ever in Amley, 13-1-1. And in 1950, people get confused because they always say the 1958 team was the only undefeated team. That's true. They played 8 games in the league and they won all 8 games, but there was no playoff system. So nowadays with the playoff system, unless you win the state championship, you're going to have a loss. And so our team was 13-1-1 that season and got the farthest that any football team has gotten. On Friday, October 25th, everyone is invited to the football game where they will be announced and introduced at the halftime. And then I have some invitations I will pass out to you. The dinner is Saturday, October 26th at Santa Rosa Golf and Country Club. And already we have responded. I think 31 of the 50 football players are coming already and their families. So it's going to be a really fun event. So I think that's about it. You have any questions? Loretta?
Thanks, Loretta. I really appreciate it. Input, email. Okay, consent calendar. Do we have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I move that we approve the consent calendar.
Second, please. I will second. Thank you. Is there any discussion about the consent?
I would just like to ask, I would just like to ask for a little bit more information about this, corrective exercise and restoration services agreement. It's a little unclear to me. Is there any cost to the district or is the entire thing a donation?
Yeah, I can speak to that. So
And speak to what it is too a little bit.
totally. I tried to give you, as much information as I thought was necessary, and you can see the terms of the agreement laid out in those documents. But just want to credit Kai Hamblin for developing a really amazing sports medicine CTE pathway program. Part of that is providing internships for aspiring athletic trainers, as well as one of Kai's goals, and you may remember when he came, I believe last year, and presented his vision for bringing athletic trainers to Amley High School to support the athletics department. And he talked about how that could align and support the CTE pathway program. So Dr. Moni Seda, I believe, if I'm correct, generously offered to fund this initiative. So she is willing to pay her employees up to $25,000 to provide those services as outlined in the agreement. All transparency, she had a little bit of some challenges around what we were advised regarding the insurance piece. And so the agreement is in front of the board as RESIG and our legal counsel advised with the strict criteria in the different areas regarding insurance premiums. She's hopeful that she'll be able to meet those agreements. So this contract, we are gonna ask the board to approve it as is. If for some reason she's unable to acquire our bottom line insurance requirements, then we're gonna have to revisit. So I'm really hopeful. I had a conversation with Dr. Saida last week, expressed, our gratitude, and she's very interested and excited about supporting this. And then we'll look at sustaining it in future years. This is what she was comfortable allocating for this year. No cost to the district, athletic trainers and internship opportunities for our kids.
Great, okay, so then I guess the piece that threw me off is at the bottom says fees in excess of $25,000 will be donated to the district by the company. So the whole thing, including anything beyond.
Yes.
Okay, I think that was why it threw me off.
And she's open to looking at how we can sustain it beyond. So those conversations will happen. I'm looking forward to meeting Dr. Saida in person, so.
Okay.
Yep.
And then one question, I don't know if it's a typo on the warrants, there is, there is an expenditure for quality suites for $21,432.74. What could that be? Quality Suites is a hotel.
I'd have to ask business.
Do you know what
Yeah,
that?
I'm not standing there very soon, don't worry.
the $20,000, that is for the Strong Workforce Program that we are the collaborative for the multiple high schools that are in that. So we pay all the invoices through that and we receive that grant funding.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. I thought like there might have been like a decimal in the wrong place or something. Thank you.
Good budget is.
Those
So,
are all my questions on.
okay, so let's vote on approval of the consent calendar. All those in favor, please say aye.
Hi.
Preferential.
And student board members, please, do you approve the
Aye.
consent calendar?
Yes.
Thank you. Action items heard in closed session. There were
No action taken.
no action taken. Okay, reports. First up, student reports, please.
Okay, hello, everybody. I don't have a lot to report. The football, volleyball, and golf seasons have started. Our senior sunrise is this Friday. We had the welcome back dance last weekend with lighting and music by DJ Dax, and Spirit Week the following week. Tomorrow is back to school night, so leadership will be participating and helping families with that. Leadership is hoping to attend the wider schools leadership conference this Monday. There's a new college and career person who I have not had the pleasure of meeting yet, but I've attended the JC help classes with them involved, and he seemed great. And our one issue is funding for ceramics classes. So I was in ceramics last year, and we are running out of clay and glazes, guys. This is something that we don't really, these are things that the students really need and the program really needs, and teachers have to ask for student help a lot within this, and I just think that'd be really important, especially since Loretta Castleberry's here with the Annalee alumni, that would be a great connector for the two, because these fantastic artists that some of which are my friends that are very dedicated to this class are unable to proceed to their fullest abilities, and students that are not my friends have also come to me regarding their disappointments. So I just wanted to report on that for everyone to make note of it.
Thank you. Association report.
Wait,
No, we have.
I'm sorry. Forgive me, I'm sorry.
Welcome.
So, yeah, okay. So, I'm the student board rep for Laguna High School. So, first I wanted to talk about the Sonoma Land Trust workshop that we just had here at, Laguna. They have really great opportunities for team programs, volunteer activities, and even paid internships. And then we also had a workshop today that was based on nonviolent communications, where we were introduced in new ways to communicate to others without using violent words, expressing our vulnerability can help resolve conflict. We basically were taught today in that workshop. And okay, also, some students are thinking about starting a leadership club at Laguna, which we don't have. So we're trying to focus on ideas like taking 2 or 3 people out of like advisory class, voluntarily were chosen, and getting them together to plan out fun things we could do for clubs and new ideas for like spirit weeks, because we don't have that at Laguna. So, and like senior sunrise and stuff that handle. We also have some upcoming field trips that we're going on to the San Francisco Mission, September 20th, October 11th. We're going to the Exploratorium, and November 16th will be the Academy of Science. That's all the field trips so far that we know. And then we also have a new like culinary class this year because we didn't have that. And what we've done so far was talk about food safety, kitchen safety, recipes, research, and like allergy information about the food that we make. And we also made the fajita tacos last week, so that was fun. And finally, for like our first Fridays, we haven't introduced them yet, but it's in the process, and it's like just where students come together and do something fun. That's all for the report.
Thank you. That was great. Thank you very much. Association.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lily Smetshammer with the WSCTA, the Teachers Association. I'd like to thank you all for your response to bringing a staff person from the tech department to the Annalee campus for students who need support with their one-to-one devices. However, we haven't seen that person yet, so I'm hoping that that change is imminent. I have feedback from staff members regarding the new cohort groups that are being piloted this year. There is an issue that is really symptomatic of a larger scheduling problem we're having at our site, and that's rampant schedule changes and requests for free periods. We've seen dramatic numbers of schedule changes, including for students who are supposed to be benefiting from these cohort groups. This impacts course allocations, staffing, and the integrity of our programs. We would like to recommend that schedule changes end a week earlier than they did this year. We allowed students 4 weeks to change their schedules this year, and an entire month into the curriculum. Some of those changes are still rolling around this week, the 5th week of school. It's too late. Culinary program has done knife safety, and they're getting new students. So we really need those to be finished up earlier in the semester. And we'd like more boundaries around those schedule change requests that are being made, as well as more intention in designing the cohorted student groups, particularly involving the consent of those students and the parents in the decision to be part of that cohort. It can feel like next fall is a long way off, but we must make program decisions now for next year, particularly regarding how our district will fulfill the new ethnic studies graduation requirement for the state of California. Our fall showcase night for incoming families is only 4 weeks away, and we don't know yet what y'all's plan is for ethnic studies and how we'll meet that graduation requirement. If we don't get that resolved before families appear at the social studies table, we don't put our best foot forward for prospective students. We're actually in a position of leadership with this program. Rachel Ambrose has been teaching this course for the past 8 years, making us the first school in the county to implement ethnic studies. She regularly speaks at education conferences around the state about curriculum and program implementation. I hope we recognize the genius in the room and involve her in making a viable framework for ethnic studies, and that we do it in the next 2 weeks so that we have a plan, a brochure, the thing figured out, so that when parents show up, we can show them how prepared we are. We are concerned about a new position open for communications coordinator. The impression among our staff is that money is being loosely spent on positions that cover responsibilities typically covered by district leadership in a district as small as ours. Band director Casey Jones is already creating social media content to promote our school and is using Parent Square to push out communications. Lastly, I want to encourage you to push out the school board meeting agenda to all members of our community. I didn't see anything on the district's Facebook page, and I looked back and I haven't seen any of them published on there for this semester. We should be pushing it out to students and parents on Parent Square, and it should go to staff through district email. This agenda is difficult to find on our district website, something that came up repeatedly during consolidation, but continues to be a problem. It's deeply embedded. You have to know exactly where to look. And when I click on future board meetings there are no entries and there never have been, even though the dates are clearly set during board meetings, and we have those. Let's increase participation in democracy at the local level. Thank you.
Thank you, Lily. I would just say that you come forward at these meetings and you call out things that need attention or need to be fixed, and you also offer proposed solutions, which is really helpful. So I'm saying, thanks for your input. It's, you know, we need to hear things, so. Association reports, further association reports. Principals, who's gonna go first?
Okay, is this on?
Yes.
Yeah, good evening. So I have a short report tonight. Last time I was here, I talked about our individual graduation plan meetings, our IGP meetings, where we meet with each family and each student at the beginning of the school year and go over, you know, what their goals are, what they need for graduation, how we can help support them in their post-secondary planning. I talk about these a lot. I feel like these are a huge part of what we do at Laguna, and we've met with about 85% of our students and families this year to this point. So we're proud of that. And one of the things that's really neat is we have a number of students we were able to recognize early and get them signed up for JC courses, which can be difficult at the beginning of the year just because of the timelines of registration. So we have students right now taking dance, Spanish, psychology, things like that at the JC. Which is really neat to see to start the year. Last Wednesday, myself, Mr. Meredith, and Dale had the privilege to go down to Milpitas and visit the innovation campus at Milpitas High School to observe that school, and they're in their first year. I'm sure Mr. Meredith may have more on this in his report. It was really great. We got an opportunity to sit down with the principal, the vice principal, and one of their teachers. And really just ask questions and absorb information and find out about their process, what has worked, what hasn't worked. So, you know, as we talk about the community schools and what's coming forward, I felt like that was really a valuable trip that we took. Last time I was here, I talked about the model continuation school application, just a quick update. The applications are due tomorrow at 4. And ours is ready to go, just dotting some final I's and crossing some final T's. So we'll have that submitted tomorrow morning, and really looking forward to going through that process and seeing what comes out the other end. And lastly, on October 4th, we are going to be hosting a basketball tournament with a number of kids from our school who expressed some interest. And we, at this point, have South Valley High School from Ukiah and Noyo High School from Fort Bragg coming down for a little 3-team tournament and some fun. And so as we kind of iron out the fine details of that, we'll push those out to everybody and hope you guys can come and check that out.
Thanks, Greg. This is great.
Hi, everyone. Chuck Wade, Principal, Annalee High School. I want to give you a sort of progress report, I guess, on many efforts that are underway at Annalee to provide all of our students with valuable credentials that they can take with them after they leave Annalee High School. We have a super strong team working on this in various ways. I think you already know that Annalee has a particularly robust advanced placement program. Last year, we had 13 students receive their AP capstone diploma. Shout out to Trisha Maxon. We're the only place in the county with this program. We offer 19 different AP courses, if I counted it right, this year. And we want to keep that program strong. And We want to offer other ways for students to earn meaningful credit and credentials and certifications that give them a leg up as they take their next steps. So here are a few of the ways that we're working to do that. The first one I want to talk about is various approaches to early college credit. Heidi Mickelson and Christy Cowson, our new vice principal, have been working really hard on this along with others. We have a number of new articulation agreements with the Santa Rosa Junior College, in particular, Culinary 3 and Hospitality have just been renewed and upgraded. These are things that take attention year after year. Our teachers sit down with their teachers, look at course outlines, look at exams, and ideally come to some agreement on ways that students can get college credit. Sometimes they get credit directly for taking the courses and passing them with a B or better on Annalee campus. Sometimes they can take an exam. That's a little bit of a moving target that changes as curriculum is reviewed every year, but it's an achievement. It's hard to make these agreements work out, and we're super proud of that. We've also been working on dual enrollment courses. In fact, we have 2 Santa Rosa JC agriculture courses taught on the Annalee campus this semester by Annalee teachers. So we have Animal Science 20 and Introduction to Agricultural Management and Business this semester. Next semester, those will be Intro to Plant Science and Agricultural Computer Applications, JC courses that students are taking on our campus. We have a new work experience class. Students enrolled in that class have an option for JC credit. There's 2 different courses they can choose from depending on their work-based learning experience, whether they're in a paid internship or volunteer work. In addition to that, Rachel Ambrose's GPS program, Globally Proficient Scholars, has 40 students who are signing up for the JC's Work Experience 95 volunteer, and they'll get credit, JC credit for performing volunteer service as part of that course. Next year, we're going to be working on another 10 dual enrollment courses, working with the JC. We actually have a meeting this Friday to try to hammer out some of the details, but this is huge. It's really a big effort that would give our students the opportunity to leave Annalee with a significant number of college credits, saving their families money, giving their students a leg up, having them already enrolled and matriculated into college, which is shown to be a really important step, particularly for first-generation college-going students. So we think it's an important thing to be working on. As a father of what is now a 5th-year senior in college, I can't tell you how important I think this is. Really important to me. I've learned that the WUI scholarship does not go beyond 4 years, so a few college credits here and there sure would have helped us. We're also working hard on work-based learning, and particularly legitimate internship placements for Annalee students. Stacy Fortin has been working really hard. Stacy's our work-based learning coordinator. In both of our work experience courses, she's working to place those students in internship experiences. A couple examples, you already spoke about the corrective exercise and restoration group. We have a couple students with paid internship placements there. One of our students who worked this summer has been invited to stay on and have a job, get a job there. We have students in-house internships as well at the Wellness Center and working in stagecraft. We have students turning their current jobs after school into legitimate internships that benefit both the place of business as well as the students learning. They're getting JC credit for that work. We have a number of students who are still waiting for placements in those work experience classes, but we'll have a lot of them. We're going to have many internships, and we plan to grow that program so that all of our students who want that experience, that first job, that kind of resume bullet, and workplace experience can have that at Annalee. In addition to that, we have many of our courses offering professional certifications to students. Few examples, Chef May's hospitality students are earning a certificate from the Accredited Hospitality Program of Sonoma County Tourism. Sarah Piccolo and Chef May's Culinary and Emily Locke's Farm to Table students are all earning food handler certificates. That's close to 250 students altogether. Kai Hamblin's introductory sports med students are earning CPR. The advanced students are earning their first aid certificates. Courtney King's ag mechanics students got their OSHA 10 certifications, good for a lifetime. And we heard reports from some of those students who have after school jobs that they got a $2 an hour raise as a result of getting that certification. Her computer application students are going to earn Microsoft certifications this spring. About 45 students in our new work experience courses will be completing the SCO Work Ready certificate. Shout out Dan Blake. I think that started with you years ago. Serious upgrades since then. I also want to talk a little bit about our workability program. Sandy Betchart has been organizing that. She reports there are 9 small student groups that go to work sites in the community for 2 to 10 hours a week, depending on the program. We have groups at Laguna High School, at Community Market, Pacific Market, Round Table Pizza, at the district office. We have folks at Harmony Farm, Andy's Produce, Sary's Kitchen, Harvest Cafe at the Sebastopol Senior Center, and at Ace Hardware. Those students are paid wages through a workability grant and a week in work contract. Yeah, they're legitimate, super valuable experiences for those students getting ready for their transition to life after high school. So those are just a few of the things that we've been up to at Annalee in the effort to ensure that all of our students have meaningful credentials in addition to their fantastic Annalee High School diploma. Thanks.
Wow. Thank you, John.
Thanks.
That's amazing.
Really informative.
Board reports.
On August 26th, I went to Shoreline School District's Community Schools meeting. It was at Bodega Bay Elementary. They are in year 2 of their implementation grant. And so they'll have a meeting later in the year at their high school. This is focused on the elementary, and they talked about the community engagement that they're doing around the community school, that they're bringing in access to mobile health services and services for homeless students. A really interesting thing they're doing, and I know we already have, most districts already have this set up, but they're launching an early release day to enable collaboration and articulation across their sites. And the implementation grant is funding enrichment activities so that the students don't have to get picked up early by their parents. So they have different community organizations that they're partnering with, and you know, they'll scale it up, just sort of like this contract that we have for the sports medicine. They're paying for it with the grant right now, but if it's successful, they'll try to work it in for ongoing sustainability. It's pretty neat. And then they're going to be also launching adult education soon. They're doing community outreach to determine what kind of courses the community would be interested in hosting. I went on August 22nd to the community meeting held here that Mr. Meredith gave an update on some of the different happenings and plans for the school, for our schools. And something that really was, we're going to be talking about independent study a little bit later. But one thing that really struck me that I guess I didn't realize how widespread it was, is that, you know, we're seeing a increase in requests for independent study, and so we're expanding the program. The flip side of that, I'm wondering now, is, kids are isolated when they go in independent study, and from the public comment at the meeting, some seem to be choosing it because they don't feel like they fit, at Annalee. There were some issues with transportation, not being able to find parking, school culture. And since the meeting, parents and community members have shared concerns with me, pointing out possibly that increasing independent study is maybe a symptom and not a solution. And I just wonder, as a board that really needs to care about the well-being of these people that could really do well with community connection, if we could find ways. I know they have meetings once a month with their teachers, but if there's ways that we could add a little bit of community to that independent study for students that are looking for that, to kind of help them with mental health and feeling connected. So how can we provide the best programming for the students? And maybe we can have some opportunities for input from our community, from our students who are taking those courses, to learn a little bit more about what's sending them there. And then finally, I signed up and I took the Title IX training that our teachers take. We, as trustees, we don't take them every year. We only take it every other year, but because it was new, I wanted to take that training. And I would recommend, and we're gonna learn a little bit more about the new rules, but I would recommend, if you have the time, it's easy, you can sign up for it online. Even you guys could do that if you wanted to, and just learn what it's all about. And we can talk more about Title IX when we come to that on the agenda. That's all I have.
So yeah, a couple of things. This morning I participated in a regional CSBA focus group. It was a small group and they were looking for small groups to start this conversation, but it was a conversation with 4 trustees. It was me, somebody from Napa, somebody from Yolo County, and somebody from Monterey County. And somebody from, another person from Sacramento County, I think. Anyway, we were talking about how the best way for CSBA to get trainings out to board members and the costs and all that kind of stuff. And it was really interesting because the gentleman from Napa County talked about his 15,000 member school district, and that it's just a teeny tiny piece of their budget to send trustees to all of these myriad of trainings and to send them to the state CSBA trainings, whether it's down south or whether it's in San Francisco. And all the rest of us were kind of like, yeah, no, that's not the case for us. We have a tiny little budget compared to what you have, and trying to send, all of our trustees to, all these myriad of trainings is, can be somewhat cost prohibitive. And that's exactly kind of what I think this focus group was about, because there's a lot of districts in California that are kind of in our situation, that are tiny and that don't have the opportunity to attend, because that's what they're seeing, from what I understood, is that their CSBA is seeing that a lot of the large districts are attending a lot of these conferences and trainings because they have the money to do so, and the smaller districts aren't able to afford to do that. So that was a really interesting, eye-opening hour of my morning this morning. And then secondly, I wanted to bring everybody's attention to the fact that State Bill number 98 regarding school funding has now moved through the 2 legislative houses. And it's regarding ABA versus straight enrollment-based funding. And I thought this was really interesting, and I didn't recognize this. California is only one of 7 states in the United States that funds its schools based on what we call butts in the seats. Whether your kid is in attendance or average daily attendance versus enrollment. And whomever it was, and I have the article here, but I don't, doesn't matter who brought it forward, but they are asking that the governor sign this, and what this bill is about is they're asking that the legislative analyst's office does research and prepares and then submits a report to the legislature about what this change might look like for the state and for school districts. It's something I personally have been talking about for the 20 some odd years that I've been on the school board, because I've always thought it was so wholly unfair that we're at disadvantage for kids that are homesick. We're disadvantaged when we suspend a kid. You know, we put a kid on suspension and they go home and they aren't here in the classroom, and you know, we don't get our funding for that. So I thought that was really interesting that's and when what I heard, the governor's likely to sign this so that at least the research can be done. And then lastly, we talked about it last month a little bit, or quite a lot, I guess, because both Chuck and Greg talked about the cell phone use issue. And unfortunately, as we all are well aware, there was another negative event with the school shooting last week. And I received 5 phone calls from parents saying, is our school district planning on taking cell phones out of our kids' hands? And I was like, oh God, here we go. So I just wanted to kind of bring that to everybody's attention, that people are talking about it, because they are realizing that the governor has talked about it. They're realizing that other school districts are talking about it. And that is one of parents' biggest concerns right now, is because of the school shootings that have been happening. And if their kids don't have their cell phone in their hand or available to them, are they going to be able to be notified if there's something that, God forbid, happens in our school district? And so somehow when we put together some sort of plan, I think it's something we have to make sure we somehow address. That's my only thought about it. I just wanted to let people know that there are concerns out there in our community about it. And that's it. Thank you.
I just wanted to say really quickly, thank you.
Yeah.
So I don't know if, anybody who knows who Maisie Boland is. I believe that she graduated from Annalee last May, yeah. Well, she was in a terrible car accident, and it's likely that she'll be a paraplegic. Last update I heard, she was getting some feeling back in her hands. But I just wanted to publicly say that we support you, Maisie, and that to keep her in your thoughts and prayers. And I believe right now, maybe the best place to get updates is her dad's Facebook, because her dad's name is Sean Boland. And she was a Guerneville School student, like I just said, Annalee graduate. And if you're so moved, she has a GoFundMe, not pushing that, but you know, like I said, if you're so moved. So just keep her in your thoughts and prayers. Thank you.
Thanks, Sean.
I have nothing insightful to say.
So I'm happy with the start of the year, receiving some really good feedback, both constructive and positive, so that's good. We really want to listen and take those things to heart. Again, big thanks to the alumni for the generous donation of $20,000 for the theater. They're more than just athletics, and we're really thankful for such a strong supportive alumni. As you may be aware, hosted the information session, had most of the trustees there, had some folks that are here in the audience there. I thought it was really good. It was really good to hear from our community, to hear how folks are feeling still post consolidation. For me to kind of reiterate, you know, where we're trying to go, how we want to focus on bringing these two communities together, talking transparently about how we've spent our bond monies, and really making sure to inform people of the vision around our community school, which I'll talk a little bit more about. I received a lot of great feedback. The Q&A at the end I thought was really, really important for me to go back and reflect on. I plan to host 3 more of those informational sessions and take them on the road to the feeder schools. I think Greg mentioned that we visited the Milpitas Innovation Campus last week with Dale. It was really insightful to hear about their process in building an innovative, non-traditional school that meets the needs of the unique learners that don't see themselves in a large traditional model. To piggyback off of the information sessions, as really that focuses to share information, we really need more feedback around our vision for creating new educational programs. So you're aware that we're working on the Community Schools Partnership Implementation Grant. We've already acquired the planning grant. We're going through that process. Laura and Sheila and Greg presented to the board. We've had these dialogue with the Educational Partner Committee. So we want to take it a step further and strengthen our application, but more importantly, hear more feedback from potential families and students around what type of educational program they may be interested in to help really shape and inform the vision. So I'm going to put together an advisory committee, invite them to those meetings, dovetail those meetings, 2 or 3 with the information sessions, so we can hear from the community. Talking to Laura Schmidt about it and some of our other leaders, it might be good to have the advisory meeting after the information sessions. We hear so much feedback from our community around how they're feeling post-consolidation, what they feel the community needs and the students need. So I'm looking forward to that. And we also think that's going to help us put our best foot forward in applying for that grant, which is due in December. I'm also attending the Community Schools Convening on October 22nd. We've got a local partner who now works for Santa Clara Office of Education, Jessica Brogolski, and she's helping to lead that effort. Laura Schmidt's presenting, and Greg and I and Laura will be heading down there on the 22nd. Really interested in learning more information, gathering some feedback from the districts that are embarking on the same journey. Be sharing that on with you. The unification feasibility study is still in process. I want to remind the board that initially our district requested that SCO complete the initial study. When that study was completed, Dr. Harrington and Christy White presented the findings of that study to our board September of my first year. Since our district didn't push the study forward to the feasibility component, Forestville's did. Their board will hear that presentation when the study's complete. I think it's really important that as we talk about all of our the work and the progress and our goals and our vision of creating something really robust and unique that we believe will meet the interest of a lot of our learners in West County and beyond, that we really focus on next steps once we know the results of that feasibility study. So once the study is complete, we'll continue, and in the meantime, we'll continue our next steps. And then we'll be bringing forward more information, more presentations, and ultimately asking the board for approval to move this new school model forward, depending on the outcome of the feasibility study. I want to share that I've shared our vision with many families and leaders in our Rush River community who have expressed interest and excitement about this vision for their students and their own children. So we're going to continue working. Thank you, Debbie, for reminding me that Shoreline has the implementation grant, so does Guerneville. So I'll be reaching out to Adam Jennings of Shoreline, and I'll plan to go visit with him and Jolene to see where they were in the process before they submitted their RFA, kind of compare that to the work that we've done, but also what they're doing now that they have the implementation grant and they're continuing to build. When you're opening a community school or you're revamping an existing school, it's an ongoing process, right? And you're really looking at how you can continue to add to those 4 pillars, take input, start your pilot, refine, and make sure that your program reflects the interests and needs of the community, and most importantly, the students. I'm excited about the upcoming PD Day on the 16th. I'd like to thank everyone involved in that planning process and give a shout out to Nicole Wilkerson for the work that she did last year, and also setting us up to, in her absence during her leave, to have that continuum and carry forward that be a student concept and really continue to focus on our initiative. So I want to invite the trustees to come out on the 16th. I want to thank the Annalee Alumni Foundation for agreeing to pick up lunches again for us and take a little bit of a lift off Dan and I's plates as we'll be catering Birdcrest. And a little shout out to Furcrest. They got new ownership. They afforded us a very similar deal to what we've had in the past, so we're excited about that. CCAP, so Chuck talked about this. We're really excited about the dual enrollment potential, right? And you've heard about what we're doing currently. I was asked to be one of 2 leads for the county with regard to a superintendent's convening to really hold space in partnership with SRJC to ensure that we're aligned in policies, practices, and that we really champion this effort. So I had that meeting, I believe it was last week. I got to meet Dr. Garcia, the new SRJC president, and I tell you what, it was delightful. The way that she showed up and her voice as a former high school teacher and coach couldn't be more appreciated. She's in the weeds. She made some really clear commitments to us to do things the right way and, you know, shared her cell phone number with us. So she's going to be a tremendous resource for our community, SRJC and the county, and all of our students are so lucky to have someone who showed up with that lens, that mindset. And I'm really excited about what this could look like for the future of our district. Annalie's rolling, but I'm looking forward to helping Laguna towards their next steps of bringing some of those programs here. And I think there's so much potential. There's also potential to partner with SSU, where they look at all of our AP courses, and this is different from CCAP, and they audit our courses. And there's potential for our students who are taking our AP courses to get SSU college credits without even enrolling at the college. So we'd love to do both. We know that CCAP really focuses on the equity piece, but we do have some incredible elite students in our AP programs. And so we'd like to be able to afford that opportunity and save families monies and really get our students a kickstart on their college careers. West County Eye Academy. So I'd like to just touch a little bit on where we're at with that. Obviously, we made the decision because there was interest, there were needs. When I audited all those students who left the district for non-comprehensive programs, many of those families chose to leave the district because there wasn't adequate space in our independent study programs and pursued Pivot, K-12, online. Debbie, you're not wrong in making some of those points, but the fact of the matter is we have to continue to support our students and find ways to keep them engaged and promote in-person learning. But if we don't offer adequate independent study options, we're going to lose those students anyway. So I'm just really excited that Jane Mays was interested in taking the full-time position. I think Jane's the perfect teacher to lead this. She's mobile. She's meeting our families where they are. She's creating a sense of community. And I want to remind you that the independent study students can participate in any extracurricular activity that the district offers. So, you know, we've got work to do to fill those seats. We know the students are going to be coming. But it's a need that if we didn't offer, we were going to lose those students with the minimum seats that we had last year. I want to talk a little bit about my role as a board member as well. As you know, I sit on 4 boards now. I want to start with the Sebastopol Rotary Education Foundation Board, and I was asked to be the chair for New Projects Committee. I want to thank Mia for recommending that I engage in that process. I think it's going to be a really good way for me to be an active Rotarian outside of just attending the meetings. What that looks like is we take 6% of the $1 million corpus and we allocate those resources for new projects, not only in our schools, but also in the feeder school districts. What we've learned is our feeder school districts, some of their education foundations, with how small they are, haven't been as robust as they've been in the past. So we really want to look at what their needs are, talk about some of those districts who maybe don't have as much activity with their foundations, encourage them to steer those monies to the Sebastopol, to the Shrek board, so that we can properly allocate. So I met with a couple of our leaders. We have a meeting next Tuesday as our next board meeting. And I'm going to be looking at prior processes for project proposals, kind of streamline that. And I'm going to bring a new document, present it to the board. Then I'm going to be meeting with the superintendents of our feeder districts. And I'm going to hand them that project proposal. You know, 6% of that, we really have about 55,000 because we take 5 or so for the teacher scholarships. But I also was contacted by John Laughlin from SCO this morning. And SCO's looking to provide some funding for educational foundations. So I haven't been able to connect with John, but my suggestion is going to be steer that money in Shrek, and then we can disperse it not only to our schools, but where the other schools may have need. And I see this as another opportunity for us to strengthen our partnership with our feeder districts. So I'll ask those superintendents to disperse the project proposals to their leaders. and we'll see what comes back, and then I'm gonna be convening with a subcommittee to evaluate that and determine where the resources are allocated. One of, my priorities is looking at how I can support districts with sustainable initiatives. Okay, so I don't wanna just give, we don't wanna just give the money if they don't have a plan to see it sustainably, continue into the future. So I think I'll be helpful that way. And that's exciting. I sit on the SELPA Council, that's Special Education Governance. We are the governing body that provides direction and supports the work of Elizabeth Ingleton, the executive director. I want just to inform the board that we're all very concerned about specialized special education programs and that they're dwindling, and SCO is not holding the space for some of the programs like they had in the past, and local districts are going to feel that impact. So I'll keep you posted. I'm really engaged in those conversations and what that looks like and what the potential impact may be on our programs, students, and budget. Consortium counseling. Today, I think the bright spot was discussing and making an agreement that we're going to host a special board meeting study session to really analyze our data, talk about our long-term plans for facilities, with the opportunity to consider opening another classroom, as we went from 3 to 2 when we weren't able to stay on the Sebastopol Union School District. And the reason being was that we couldn't find a third classroom. It's not because we didn't want to invest in that. And so that has impacted some of those class sizes, as you can imagine. So we're really trying to be proactive. And as I mentioned last month in my SUPES report, the vice chair this year, so I'm trying to take a more active role. I want to thank Dan for engaging and helping and supporting. We've tried to be present at the Forestville campus through this transition. I got the chance to spend a half day on the 23rd. And I mean, big thanks to our staff for the tireless hard work and the care they show for those students. That is a tough job. And I just truly appreciate our staff. West County Transportation JPA Council, EV buses are in queue. So that's pretty cool. That's the biggest update I got there. But, Chad's moving, towards an all EV fleet. He's got vehicles purchased. They're getting their infrastructure set. And, obviously this is an initiative set forth by the state, but as a council, we've given Chad some direction that we want to be ahead of that curve in light of the goals to be a more green Sonoma County. I'd like to thank our student board reps and let you know that at Leadership 40, which is the convening for all the superintendents last Friday, Associate Superintendent Kitamura is working on some professional development for student board reps. So she took a little, who's interested? I text her right away. I'll keep you updated. I want to help you in these roles. Lastly, we started our informal meetings with WSCTA and CSEA. I'll start off with thanking Lily and Leslie for a productive first meeting and the collegial dialogue and for some really thoughtful suggestions. So as you mentioned that, I feel like there are solutions presented, not just problems offered. So we're planning to locate tech on the Annalee campus with the goal of 10-1, meeting with the tech team next week to talk this through further and give the team an opportunity to share their insights and suggestions. Chuck and Jenny have been in conversation regarding the most appropriate space. We are going to prepare more communication for the October board meeting to ensure that we're promoting our regular board meetings. I want to use the live feed. I want to use our email groups. I think we're starting to I see new people sign up for our opt-in email groups every day. I get notifications. And so getting our agenda out through that channel, and it's been an effort. I think the last year we really dialed in our internal communication. We did some great work around our website. Jenny and Gloria were just instrumental in streamlining communication through Parent Square, working on the digest, making sure that we have as much information through many channels, streamlined, and obviously Gloria's work in terms of different communication mechanisms was really helpful. So we're recruiting for that part-time position currently, and we look forward to expanding our communication efforts outside of the internal system. We're also looking at course requests and schedule change processes. Lily and Leslie provided some really good suggestions. We take course requests early in the spring semester. One of the suggestions was to revisit that, to make sure that students didn't change their minds, to lessen the impact on the schedule changes that happen at the beginning of the year, and having a more of a system in which empowers the parents to be a part of that choice, empowers the teacher to talk to students before they move out of the class. I think we're missing a few pieces that I think will help what Lily spoke to tonight. And I would like to thank Paul and Bridget for a productive first EERC, and that's our informal with CSEA, and that stands for Employee-Employer Relations Committee. So the feedback's been great, and Dan's met with the labor union partners as well, as he's getting his feet wet as our new executive director of HR. That's what I've got for today.
Wow. Good job.
Thank you.
Chris, I have one comment on getting the agenda out. I wonder if it would be possible in getting that out, having somebody write a brief narrative of some of the top items instead of saying, here is the agenda, to say, here's some of them, because there's a lot of things on the agenda and some of them are routine and maybe not what people are interested in, to have them drill down and understand that if they're not accustomed to
Before the meeting, Debbie?
Yeah, and you said that you said for the October meeting, and you're going to start putting out sort of to the community, and you're going to do a little bit more advertising for the meeting. So rather than it being, here's the link, take a look at it.
Sure.
Picking out a few of the top things that you think people would be most interested in, and then also including the links so that they can see the whole thing.
I think that's a good idea. I think if you recall, Gloria produced some amazing post-board meeting summaries with links directly to the agenda item, the vote, and a summary, whether it be my narrative or the notes she captured. We're planning to continue that process, and I'll be working on August and September. I can easily do that, front load it, and have that prepared when the agenda goes out with just a little bit of a heads up or a, hey, this is noteworthy. Then we can add to it for the post-board meeting report. Does that sound
Perfect chat GPT.
There you go.
Create a prompt, take this agenda, get rid of the consent calendar, summarize it. You'll have it in 20 seconds.
No,
I think that'd be really good too for promoting student participation, because while that's like my job for the Anyway campus, I can't speak on every student demographic. So I just think it's a really good idea for students to understand our important student.
maybe I'll delegate some of that to you. Thank you for the.
Okay, moving right along, facilities maintenance and technology. Jenny, would that be you?
That is me.
Hey, you're up.
Do you, this is an action item. Do you want to?
Oh, it is. Do we have a motion to consider the approval of the phase 2 bond project? John moved. I'll second. Discussion. Presentation.
Presentation.
Elimination.
Thank you for having me tonight. I'm Kevin Chapin with Kotroki Quack Architects. So tonight we're, if you remember back in the spring, we were authorized to schematically design 4 different projects. These were the projects that were deemed kind of the highest needs at Annalee. And so we're going to present those schematic designs tonight and what the probable cost of those are at this point. So there are 4 projects to remind everyone what we're talking about the stadium tonight, some upgrades that we need to do to that and maintenance of that project or that field to keep it up and running. Just to the left in green is the cafeteria. To the south of the stadium, we have the east wing and L1, L2, and there we go.
There we go.
The last one is the gym itself. I recognize why these were picked. These are not the only needs on the campus. And so as we design, we always look at kind of what we know the long-term future of this campus and the current Laguna campus as well. So we're not kind of designing bubbles saying, okay, we're only touching this building. We're also looking ahead, knowing what buildings are eventually going to have to be replaced or modernized to make sure that we're designing something that's going to work for the campus for a long term. So we're not designing something that has to get ripped out later. So we're trying to think of it kind of more holistic. And as we started, before we get into this, so schematic design is really, we're hearing everything the staff is telling us they really want. And so when we get estimates, they sometimes come in higher than we want. And as we go into the next phase of projects, the design process, we do start looking at some of those value engineering things that we could do to either reduce scope or not to get these projects in the budget once they go forward. So at the track and field, So over on the very left, bottom left is the stairs that currently are kind of the main entrance into the stadium for football games. With the new press box and bleachers that we put in about 12 years ago now, I guess it is, 10, 12 years ago.
A long time ago.
And so what we're proposing to do, right there, thank you, Jenny, is to create a ramp. So everyone kind of has the same entrance. So people coming in wheelchairs having a hard time navigating the steps, they can go down to a ramp from right there. So everyone enters the stadium at the same spot. And then go down to a ramp, and down the bottom corner of the stadium is doing some kind of informal seating with turf and concrete. It's very similar to what we have out here. Because we found the students really liked that spot on the campus over there. And we need to work on the grades to get the ramp down there. So it kind of creates this natural place where we could create some tiered seating out there as well as kind of an alternative seating. That ramp goes down and connects to the other one by the bathrooms and heads down to the track. What's also in this is that turf now is over a decade old and does need to be replaced, coming up really quick. The lifespan on those are about 10 to 12 years. And that's the carpet itself. The shock pad that's underneath and everything else under it doesn't need to be replaced. That shock pad gets about 3 cycles out of it. So we're still good for numerous years. However, we do have to tear up part of that because we do need to replace some of the piping that's underneath the field that's starting to fail. But that's a really limited compared to the whole entire redoing the whole entire field. We also will do that, repair underneath the track. So we'll do a little patch and repair of the track, and then we'll reseal the track, give it a nice new coat, new striping to extend the life of that rubberized surface. Over on the very top of the stadium, when we did the modernization last time, we didn't replace those bleachers. They are definitely at the end of their lifespan. So we want to replace those, replace them with a very similar type of bleacher that's on the south side, just without a press box. So we're looking at about 900 to 1,000 seating on that. And then just to the right of that, we are proposing to put in a whole bunch of more concrete flat work. And so there could be future storage buildings out there. So track and field doesn't have to carry all the mats as far as they do. And there's just a lot of storage goes out there with different sports and graduations and other stuff that happen out there.
I just also would like to mention the process in which we took for schematic design was to engage and involve the site administration as well as teachers and the athletic director specific to this project to what their specific needs were. Since we had a pretty well-designed stadium already, there wasn't a lot of work that went into this particular schematic design. It was more kind of future-proofing portions of it. As we know that we have limitations on how many bleachers we can put in based on the proximity to the neighbors and to the back part of our property and how much we can overhang. It was really important for athletics and PE to have future plans for us to have storage, which is why we called out areas for putting down nice concrete. We're not necessarily suggesting to add a storage container or storage building at this time. And I think just a testament to the schematic design process is we're asking to design it to what we ultimately want it to look like. It might not be this version at the end. This was what we would go to potentially DSA with after we get through construction documents. But similar to what we did with the Performing Arts Centers, we could build it in phases. But the goal was to try to identify programmatic needs, and that kind of flows through the rest of the projects that you'll hear from us. And we had really great interaction with our teams. We had multiple different teams that we work with for each project that really gave us great input. And I think we have some really quality projects here.
Correct. So kind of a reminder what's out currently out here. This is what we're talking about as we go down on that ramp. We have to, navigate the different elevations. So it's just trying to create some kind of informal seating areas that expands the total capacity of the stadium, but it also is adjacent to the current quad. So it can be an expansion of that space and give students a place to hang out and eat lunch as well, since it's adjacent to that quad as well.
Is that turf or will that be lawn?
That'd be turf. A little different turf than the sports one. It's a lot thinner. Just because it dries out and kids can sit on it right after the rain.
Very long, yeah.
That is great. I'm sorry. I just want to say that's really cool.
It was also the intention of anyone who was around for the first iteration of the stadium. This was part of what was value engineered out. We could not afford it at the time. And so we thought, hey, let's bring it back in. Let's get it part of what gets approved. It also increases our ADA access, which, as we all know, our campus is a little bit problematic with how many different grades we're on. So we were trying to achieve student seating, potential outdoor teaching spaces, additional lunch areas. It was really done with a lot of intent in mind.
Yeah, and that was kind of the corner. We want to make sure that everyone kind of enters the same spot so people don't feel like they're having to come to the stadium through the back door too. And that's kind of an idea what the bleachers would look like. They would have ramps on both sides. You have your ADA seating up front and a whole bunch of rows behind it. Like I said, very similar to the bleachers are on the south side, just no press box on this side. So trying to maintain your overall capacity that you currently have. Okay, East Wing and L1, L2. So what we're trying to do on this one, with culinary moving into that new CTE building, this really gave us an opportunity to re-examine the science department in whole and try to bring them all into one building. Because currently you have one classroom in the second floor of the main hall in 215. And then you have the two undersized chemistry classrooms there in L1 and L2. So with culinary going away, it kind of freed up that space. And so we were looking at how do we really bring the science and create a science department building as part of this one. As part of this, we also would be modernizing L1, L2 to pull in video production into that space to allow the growth of more science rooms within that. So if you want to go to the next slide.
Just for the aesthetic piece for everybody, the goal of this building was to mirror it on the north side to the south side. So the south side has that pretty little kick out. This also has that front kick out with an outdoor covered walkway, because as you see when we go through it, we eliminated the interior.
Jumping ahead. So this is the demolition plan. Normally we don't show these as part of our presentation, but what I'm trying to demonstrate here is this is really a full modernization. So any of those wall or items that are in red, those are to be demolished. So we're really upgrading this building. So starting on the north, we're modernizing, doing some very heavy modernization of the existing classrooms for the three, part of that curve and the other side. There are more classrooms than there are science. So we do maintain two regular sized classrooms in this building still. They're over there on the right. And as Jenny said, we really looked at trying to mirror this. So where the culinary arts is, we're adding a new science classroom and then adding a few more on the bottom side to kind of mirror what's on the north, as well as making a new science classroom where audio visual is. We also, there's currently a prep room in between the two up top, and we really want to expand that into the hallway and onto the other side to make one kind of large prep space that multiple classrooms can share. It also creates a large space inside that can be set up as kind of a collaborative workspace for the teachers as well. We just recently did something like this at Sonoma High School, and it's working really well because there's boards and they can work together. They're all going in and out of the same prep room, so they're always kind of crossing each other and having those informal conversations that they just don't normally would get if they're having their own spaces. So as Jenny said, we are putting in a covered walkway on the outside because we do want to convert those hallways as just basically exit hallways, as well as create some spaces where students can work outside as well. So it's not just a thoroughfare anymore. So it's really enter and exit, but give students an area to work outside of those classrooms as well, especially on rainy days. On the far left side, I want to mention that we're putting in all access restrooms for both students and staff. So we have a large gender neutral restroom on the south side for the students and a smaller one on the north side for staff. Give you an idea, the image over on the left is what we recently did at Lynbrook Homestead High School, down in Cupertino. So we ripped out all the lockers and we made all these kind of workspaces. And so students can actually like put a laptop out and work on that, especially on a rainy day where there's not many places on that campus to go where students can be protected from the element. And really allowed these places to be a place where students can, you know, charge up something or work during a break if they want to.
Stan, we.
So that part of this project too is converting the current undersized chemistry, that L1, L2. Once again, completely demoing this and moving the video production into this. This is actually an ideal location to put video production because they don't want the natural light. You know, we promote getting natural light into classrooms because it's better for their learning environment. Not in this case. So they were actually looking forward to moving into this space just because of that. They don't have to control the natural light anymore. So the layout on this one, the classroom's on the bottom. Their current classrooms is an old computer lab, so it's kind of individual workstation that's in the middle of the classrooms. It's not really ideal for what they want to do. So what we're doing here is as requested, we're trying to move all the computers to the outside walls and really free up that center as much as possible. So we're putting in kind of a light grid, camera grid that goes in the middle with the teaching wall at the very north end of that classroom. Adjacent to that classroom, we have two sound isolation rooms. So students can go in there, make noises so they can do all their recordings for their videos in kind of a soundproof space. So they're not getting that cross noise coming through for their videos. In between, there's a little, what we call a light or sound lock with some lockable storage. So some of the higher, more expensive stuff can always be locked up and controlled. There's also access to a sound booth that looks into the lab space itself so that you can control sound in there as well. Kind of similar to what you see on the image on the left. That space in there, similar to the classroom, it have much larger production rigging for lighting and for video, multiple curtains on the back and all the walls that, you know, your green screens, your black screens. So it really allowed for multiple different things that students can do for video. And the next one. The next project is the cafeteria. Kind of the goals of the cafeteria when we met with food service is they really want to expand the program and be able to serve more students a day. And really lines in the kitchen right now are preventing that from happening. And so looking at ways we could speed up that delivery, have more options so there's less waste, and really creating places for students to sit as well, make more covered area. So what you can see here is your existing cafeteria with a large outdoor covered seating area outside of it, right in the front of it. We're proposing to put in roll-up doors kind of in the middle of it. So it really kind of starts to blend inside, outside as well. So if you want to go to the next slide. Kind of reminder, that whole master planning, we're already doing that as part of the CTE building. We are actually developing all that site outside of the cafeteria to really kind of pull in the cafeteria to the new culinary classrooms and kitchen, and really doing a large kind of connection between the two. Outside the cafeteria, you can see all that seating, and that's really what we're trying to provide outdoor covered space for. So on part of this project, what we're doing is basically the kitchen, the speed, and where the current lines are, is doing a full modernization of that kitchen to really make an efficient new kitchen that works with how they're running their food service right now. And then we're taking the right third of the current cafeteria and converting those into 4 speed lines where you can access it from both the top and from the bottom. So there are 2 different now places for you to enter to go those lines. And you can pick up food from either side and then head to your left straight into the cafeteria or through that roll-up doors right into that covered area outside to really kind of speed up that process. When we met with food service, they had ideas and show you in a second. So we went in and visited a school that our kitchen consultant had just done that was very similar to that, and when on the field trip, it was pretty much verified that's kind of the system we were looking for. Also included this, the north end is we're doing a faculty room at the top as well as a restroom. Down on the bottom, we're also doing an all access restroom for students on the south side as well to add more restrooms to this side of the campus. Want to go then?
And one of the other key takeaways, we flipped the snack bar. The
Correct.
snack bar is currently here. And the students access it from inside. We flipped it to be accessible from the outside quad. Which is probably more indicative of a snack bar. And then the speed lines really are to promote transitioning away from prepackaged food to food that the staff are actually serving. So this is a kitchen that would be designed and appropriate for cooking food.
So when you give the kids an option to get stuff, it tends to be less wasteful because they're only taking what they want. You know, there's stuff they need to take as well, but it's not take a package and eat it or throw away what you don't want. So kind of a quick look at that. So mainly looking at the bottom image, it's if we were to cut the building in half, looking at a section. So you can see the area with the sloped top, that's the servery. So we're only taking up a portion of the current cafeteria space to put in those new speed lines. And we're trying to keep it low so we can keep the volume of the cafeteria at the same size it currently is. And as you leave the cafeteria, that is that covered area outside as well. So it's fairly large. Next slide. So the project we went and visited is actually over at Cardinal Newman. We just recently did their new student services. And it's a very kind of similar setup where the staff serves from one side, the students go down either side and get their stuff and exit straight out. So that's image on the top right. That's their inside of their cafeteria. So nice open area and it extends outside. You have the roll up doors there too. And goes right into that covered area that's on the bottom. So when the field trip happened out there, everyone really liked the idea of how it felt like it was in and out in the covered area and it all felt kind of as one space.
And not the actual in and out, but like
Yes.
in and out. Yeah.
Inside out.
This was really kind of stepping up our cafeteria game and our students, student areas to hang out or to gather or to do collaborative work. Making the cafeteria not just this place that you go to eat, but it to be a dining hall or to be a work hall or a space where students can congregate, like a student union almost, which is a really cool concept. And we really saw that happening when we visited the Cardinal Newman campus and just liked the way that they framed the name of the school. And it was just really a neat space. A lot of consideration went into this. I'm like, wouldn't it be cool if you were a student here? It feels very collegey.
And with the food service and the roll-up doors, we can close down that. And so the cafeteria can be used for other uses beyond that because the access to the food line can be controlled for after hours. So it does expand the amount of time that space can be used. Lastly, on this campus is the gym. The gym actually gave us the hardest time of all the projects. Mainly because of the age of the building and the construction type of being concrete and being built into a hill. When we do projects of modernizations, this division, the state architect has really strict rules on what you can do to a building before you have to fully upgrade it to certain codes. Well, we're going to probably do that on the cafeteria and on the east wing. Those are single-story wood frame buildings, so it's fairly easy to bring those up to current code. Now, working on a 70-year-old concrete building with a large retaining wall, not so much. So if we were to have to bring this building up to current seismic codes, it would become very cost prohibitive very quickly. So when we worked on this project, we really tried to work with the scope that didn't hit any of those triggers that would force us to seismically upgrade this building. So our hands were a little tied on what we could do and what we couldn't do to this building. So we kind of approached it from that, what can we do that doesn't trigger a full seismic upgrade to this building?
And what that really entailed through the design is not touching the core of the building itself, building everything around and or doing modern, or cosmetic modernizations
Correct.
on the portions that we could touch.
Yeah, try to.
We're really landlocked here. So we will show you or just kind of tell you that there is another option, which would be to build a brand new gym. So we explore both of those.
So coming in from the street and kind of your upper level here, you know, you have your hallway and it overlooks into the gym. So we did get an elevator in because that's one of the biggest parts of this right now is there's no ADA access from the top to the bottom. So we had to push that kind of far in. And the reason why it's so far into the building is again, to avoid the retaining wall, because it's not just a wall, there's a huge foundation that goes out, you know, 10, 12 feet. So we had to avoid that and a whole bunch of other framing. So that was pretty much the only area we could find to put the elevator that wasn't kind of an appendage to.
Is that the item with the big X?
Yes, Jenny, you wanna, yeah, right there.
Yeah, right here. Sorry, I can't see
Sorry.
anymore.
So that's where we found where we could put the elevator. We are looking at converting what's currently the dance into athletic and PE offices. Because the dance room as part of this would go into another building. So if we go on to the second, the lower floor, this is where you can see some fairly bigger changes. And so to get some of the program needs that athletics and physical education brought to us, we are doing what you call a new building. So they're seismically separated by about 6 inches between our addition and the existing building. So it's technically two different buildings, so they're seismically separated. The locker rooms themselves, we're gonna remove some of the non-structural walls, expand them. So on the bottom, we got rid of the team rooms down there to allow us to do that. So we have larger ones. We also put in gender neutral locker room as well on the bottom. So just fully modernizing those, bringing new restrooms and bringing that gender neutral locker room in as well.
We put both the boys and the girls locker rooms in the big gym right now. There's the girls are in the small gym and the boys are in the main gym. And so we combine both of those into the same gym, which is really what needs to happen.
Yes.
And getting rid of the team rooms allowed us to do that there.
Yeah.
We're bringing back the team rooms at a different spot. So on the new building, so we can't connect where the doors come out from the locker rooms. We can't connect that to the new building because we have to preserve the existing exiting. That's one of those triggers. So we built it so the exits align with the hallway we're putting onto the new part of the building. Our structural engineer said we could make one opening between the gym and this new addition portion. So we put a set of double doors kind of right there at the mid court. It goes into a hallway. Right as you come into that, if that bottom room is a training room, so it's training and sports med, we go into that space. Adjacent to that, to the north, is those are we're proposing to put in the replacement for the team rooms. To allow the girls' locker room to go down to that space, is putting in a couple team rooms there. Across the hall, we have storage that goes out towards baseball, as well as out towards the track. Then we're proposing to move the locker room down here as well. Not locker room, sorry, weight room down here as well. And we purposely put it on the edge here because we can put, similar to the cafeteria, we can put roll-up doors and it can go kind of extend out into the asphalt area there. So it allows for students to be able to work out outside, inside, and keep going. So it kind of expands that weight room a bit. Below that, we have custodial. We also put a small toilet room in there, and then.
To the exterior,
Yeah, I was gonna
there
say,
would be additional stadium restrooms.
correct.
At which would also service, the baseball and softball fields.
These ones that are there.
These ones right
Yeah, we have
here.
one that's in the hallway that would serve the gym, and then we have one that
Those-
faces out towards the stadium and baseball.
That's really great, because that is a real problem when you're at baseball games.
Yeah, we recognize that, and we wanted to help with both of those and to bring some more restrooms that are easily accessible down here.
Also, the intent of one of the training rooms would be to be the sports medicine classroom, which would also be in close proximity to all of the athletic programs, with the exception of, maybe girls softball, which is further up.
Can I ask a question before you move on?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So on the previous slide, you talked about the dance room being moved into a separate
Mhm.
building, and so I'm just wondering and then, again, that's like this specific sheet. I'm wondering if this is the plan that we go with, would there be immediate set plan for the program? Or would they, what's?
It's kind of what you call a trickle effect.
Mhm.
So when you build one project, you've got to segue for another project.
Right.
So the idea would be the weight room would move into this new space and the dance room would go into the weight room
With the modernization.
with the
effects.
modernization there. So like it's kind of like a little switcheroo game
Okay.
that we play, and it's a balancing act. So like for example, when we build the new culinary facility, culinary will move out of classroom 10, but 10 will now become a science classroom. So it's kind of like the shell game that we play with classrooms. So it's not showed on here necessarily with this particular modernization, but we are
Thinking about
accounting
that.
for it, moving.
And then also, would there be, sorry, I don't see it in the design, would there be gender neutral bathrooms within this building as well?
Correct.
We have we have one in the new building downstairs as well as the larger one outside as well.
Okay,
So, yes,
sorry, I just don't see it in this thing.
yeah, it's a small little one and this one.
Yeah, single stalls are all gender neutral restrooms. So that one interior is single stall, and the majority of our restrooms, as we modernize them, are going to all gender, but I want to be very specific what that means. It means that they're sharing sinks. The stalls go from floor to ceiling for privacy, so people can go in and use the facilities as they see.
Okay, thank you.
Just, the sink space where
You'll all
Stuff
wash your hands
happens.
together.
is more visible, so there's less issues that happen in restrooms and
Thank
it's a little bit more visible.
There it goes. There it is. Okay.
Yeah.
Louis has a question here.
Yes.
I was on this block, why is the boys locker room so much bigger than the girls locker room?
It's just space at this point. We haven't really laid it out. So part of that in the back, towards the boiler room, I know they use that as storage. So there's actually part of that's gonna become storage as well. So it's actually, we would make them the same size because we don't want to be in a violation of Title IX.
The NBA and the WNBA locker room should be the same size.
Correct. And that's what we would do. We'd add some more storage, or as we lay it out, we'd make sure that they're equal facilities.
And right now, when we're just at schematic, we're basically laying over our existing plans. So this is the existing floor plan layout kind of reconfigured. So we're asking you to kind of take an imaginative walk with us on, we haven't got into what we call design development, where we really start to get into the weeds and deal with all of the adequacy pieces. This is just kind of the pretty version that we can all discuss here.
Yes.
Actually, I have a question too. So we're talking about, playing the switcheroo game where, is there ever, if all the construction is happening at the same time, seems like it would be a time when some class was displaced. And so what happens to that class if it's displaced, it doesn't have a place to switcheroo to?
We don't ever get to a point where we have that. We always account for classes needing somewhere to go. So like with the new CTE facility that's about to come online, We know that we're going to be demolishing Maker and we're demolishing, what's known as the Ag Portable, which is now Annex 3. So we're currently landing new classrooms, hopefully DSA dependent sometime in December, and we'll start that segue those teachers over. Those 6 portables that you guys approved months ago for us to design was with the intent that they would be temporary housing as we manage through construction. So we might have to get very creative with shared facilities like the small gym as we take things over, but with respect to like the dance room and the weight room moving, that's a summer project. The expansion of where we're planning on putting the weight room wouldn't move until that project was done. And conceivably, we would coordinate it with the contractors, but the last piece that would go in would be the elevator. So the elevator is happening at the tail end of construction over a summer, so we're not impacting classes. And it's become, Chris and the cabinet hear me say this, even Chuck today, I said, it's like a symphony.
It's a symphony.
It literally has to come online, and we are, just for the good of the group, we are working so closely with our construction contractors and our architects right now on our CTE project, down to here's our plan A, here's our plan B if things don't happen. And there's a lot that happens behind the scenes in order to make sure that all of our staff have somewhere to work and all of our students have somewhere to go. And it is rare where we don't have a contingency plan. So while I don't have all the answers right this second, we're constantly thinking about the contingency plans.
Yeah, I mean, even as early as this, because as we met, we were talking about, okay, well, if this project moves forward, what do we have to do? So we're constantly thinking about that between Jenny and myself, and we do have a contractor on board.
Yeah, thank you.
But really good question, because
Yeah,
it's constantly in our head.
It's all these moving pieces that you just have to put together like a jigsaw.
Yeah, you can't do it last minute, so
No.
we start real early in the process thinking about these things. So the cost estimates, we did send these all out to our cost estimators. Like I said, initially, these are capturing all the dreams and goals from each of the departments we met with. So we haven't begun that process of looking at, well, do we actually need all this? Can we value engineer some of this down? What can we do? So the track's coming in about $5.5 million. That was based off an original construction start of spring of 2025. East Wing's coming in just over $16 million. That's based off a construction start at the end of next year. The cafeteria modernization is coming in at $8.4 million with the construction, based off of construction costs at the end of May next year. And the gym's coming in at just under $21 million, and that's based off starting next summer as well. Just kind of a reminder, these are based off those construction dates. These are also just hard construction costs. So there is about 30% more that you would have to pay in soft cost as well, get your total project cost. And then every year a project doesn't happen, you have to add 4.5 to 5% every year, because that's just how much construction is going up in cost. So every year that gets longer, it goes up and costs more to do these.
And just for the good of the group, the reason we pick like construction start and potential end times is so that we can have a true example of a cost estimate. Please recognize that these were not attainable start dates for us. We don't have the capacity to have, you know, $45 million worth of construction happening, because then we wouldn't be able to house. So it's just more of a snapshot for you guys to understand that, hey, this is based on if we were to start this project in this time. So I just want to make sure everyone here knows, like, we were not planning on doing the stadium, the East Wing, and the new CTE building.
We wanted to give you,
Same time.
if the project was to start, this is as soon as we could do it, and that's what the construction budget's based off of. And then here's what happens if it's delayed. Here's your escalation rates.
So two things. One is I just want to point out that it's 7:50 and we have a lot of other things on the agenda. This is great. I'm not in any way belittling how cool.
Getting close.
Wrap it up real quick.
But let's keep it moving.
Yeah.
And my other question is, so this is a approval item on the agenda.
Yes.
We don't have $75 million. For
That is
all the
not the-
projects. So what exactly are we approving?
Well, normally you guys take a motion. Do we not take a motion?
Yeah, we did.
We did.
So, in the motion, it said district respectfully recommends that the board,
Approve the schematic design.
It just says approval of a phase 2 bond project priority.
yeah, we are
So
asking you to
we-
prioritize projects, and I put a recommendation in there of what projects we were asking you to prioritize.
So we're just saying the board's opinion is this order of priorities would be important.
Direction.
We're seeking direction for
Yeah.
you. So the district, if you, read through the board item that I wrote, I kind of explain everything and what projects we are recommending, and we're recommending the East Wing modernization, L1 and L2, Annalee Stadium modernization, and we have yet to get to the Laguna High, which we can cover in a minute or two. Modernization, so we're looking for you to give us direction on, that is the priority that you'd like us to proceed forward with, which we would then, on a subsequent item, we are asking you to approve a consultant contract for the Laguna. We were not ready at this meeting to bring consultant contracts for the other two projects. We still are at the tail end of finishing projects we have active and finalizing those dollars. We know we don't have enough for all three of these projects, but we feel that we can value engineer them to a point which we can afford them, as well as phase them.
And so, Jenny's done a really good job of working with our architects. After looking at the projects that we've identified, and that's what was just presented. But clearly, we believe that the priorities should be with board blessing and direction, Annalee East Wing, Annalee Stadium, and then the Laguna High School modernization or maintenance project, many facelift. Obviously, we consider going out for a bond measure because of these challenges, knowing that we've got a lot of facility needs at both campuses. I made the recommendation to pull that and not have the board approve the resolution for obvious reasons, right? We felt like it wasn't the right timing, but I want to note, that Kevin touched on that escalation piece. And I heard a lot of rationale, so why now, why not? That was part of the why, and that's okay. And I think we've got to do some really good work to see these projects come to fruition. It would entail us going out in 26 in the spring, so I'm just continuing to have that dialogue. We know what we need to do in terms of transparency in the community and communication, and just let some of the things that are being taxed alleviate a little bit over the next couple of years. But we hope to see all these projects come to fruition. We hope that we can bring back in the future the full modernization of the main building to continue to revamp and add to the beautiful facility that we're sitting in right now. So appreciate the clarifying questions. I think that Jenny and her team and our architects have done an amazing job of really kind of pinpointing our projects. And I also got to give a shout out to the teachers that were involved, most notably the science team.
They came ready to go.
That facility, and when we've heard the board's priorities, we know where the priorities are. We've heard our labor partners in terms of referencing, like, we need to focus on classrooms, but then there's also those safety needs and just like the turf project. That's just a project that's inevitable when you install field turf to resurface it. And then my recommendation, for everything I've heard around our visions and goals, use of both campuses, and gave Jenny some direction. She's done a really great job, and I'm interested in letting you guys hear about what we want to do here, because I think that's huge. I really do.
Let's do that. Let's make sure.
Let's hear that.
We'll wrap it up real quick for you.
I have a question.
Oh, yeah.
So the motion on the floor and the staff recommendations do not include the gym. That was just an extra for someday in the future. Is that why we saw that tonight?
What when we initially went down this path, I actually went back and read my initial board item, because I was like, what was I thinking? I just have to remind myself, and the intent was, we knew at the time that we weren't gonna have enough money to do all 4 projects. But we knew all 4 projects had equal merit to them, and that they were important to the functionality of the campus, along with all the projects that we haven't even got to, like the 2-story building, the library, a plethora of other classrooms that need facelifts or just modernizations or new facilities. But these were the 4 projects that we felt comfortable coming forward with to get to a point where we could know what we wanted to or needed to prioritize. So that was kind of the process we went through and the methodology that we had for why we're presenting 4 projects that we know that we can't afford. But it's also good leverage that if and when we're able to go out and ask the community for another bond, or when and if that happens, that we have ideas in mind and projects that we've kind of locked up and that are sitting on the shelf quasi designed, that can be very quickly put into the fold, along with a lot of other ideas of how we can get projects off the ground and maximize whatever happens next. So that was our thought process. So sadly, we can't afford everything, although we would like to.
And the reason for taking that one out is just that it is so expensive. It would need to take, it would take the place of 2 other projects.
It would take the place of 2 other projects, and at the end of the day, what we haven't really discussed with you is the very likelihood that the gym should be torn down and we should build a brand new gym, because it becomes extremely cost prohibitive, and we're basically tying the hands of future administration, future boards on what you can do there. You've now landlocked everything around a gym that really you can't touch.
That's our best case scenario of keeping the gym is what we showed. So it does landlock it. It doesn't allow us to do what we really want to do to that gym to bring it up to.
We really wanted to afford the cafeteria project too, but we have a maintenance project and we have a classroom project. It's just, so our goal is to try to figure out how we can save as much money as possible and, you know, kind of falls back in our community.
So the Laguna, this is a beautification project. So it's trying to make a little bit of curb appeal to the campus as well. So what we're planning on doing is doing a slurry seal, protect the concrete or the asphalt. So doing that kind of layer over the top of it, restripe everything. There is some asphalt that is definitely towards the end of its life and does need to be fixed. So which is kind of patching and repairing as we needed to do it, slurry sealing it and restriping it as it currently is. Repainting the exterior of all the buildings, with the exception of the theater. And then every classroom building would also be interior painted that are currently in use. We're also proposing to get demolished the H and the K wings, which are the portable wings. They're currently not being used. They're at the end of their life, but kind of falling apart at this point. And just kind of get rid of those while we're doing this as well. There's a few other things we wanted to get rid of as well as they have those translucent panels that are at the kind of falling apart. So getting rid of those at the same time.
Where are they?
They're on the covered walkways.
Oh, yeah,
The
those
little
yeah.
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 Oh, I'm sorry, some of the feedback I got from staff is, well, they're not very great to get, but they are pretty functional. Just if there's other options out there that can let in some natural light, that's not a curtain, that's all or nothing. Just bringing that to the floor here, because that was some of the feedback I got from staff.
Okay. Thank you, Greg. And then lastly, replacing all the clock bell speakers here. I mean, if you look, both 2 clocks are different times.
4 o'clock and 8 o'clock.
So, and that roughly has a budget of about $1.5 million to do all that work.
1.5.
That's what we budgeted for that project. It doesn't mean enough what it's going to cost.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Maybe as we try to sort this out. So, we're being asked to prioritize. There's a recommendation for the East Wing, the new science building, you could call it, and the stadium repair, and the Laguna project.
Correct.
What do we have money for?
We have.
Because that's
approximately-
16 million, and
We have-
a half, and 1.5.
Approximately 20 million.
We have 20, and so that's 16 to 22, that's like almost 24.
Correct, and what I mentioned was, it's our job now. So when we're estimating at schematic level, we're throwing some pretty big numbers at things that we don't know yet because we haven't fully designed the project. So as you go through design development and construction documents, and if you have your contractors on board early, like we've chosen to do with lease leaseback, that's where you really refine that. We believe that we can, through value engineering, and if you're not familiar with what that term means, it means we go through the project and take out what we don't think is absolutely necessary through value engineering, as well as the potential of phasing projects. We phased the Performing Arts Center from the shell to the back of house. And it just so happened we also passed a bond right at the perfect time, and that went sequentially very quickly. So designing the project to the ultimate design is in the best interest of the district to have the most flexibility to build what we can afford now, and then have a plan for what we can afford later.
So the next agenda item is approval of a contract with QKA for the Laguna project. And then if we were to prioritize the other two, this stadium and the East Wing, would we then be moving into having them develop any further drawings, or this is enough for us to sit on then saying we have a priority, we have early schematic design for them, we're going to sit till we're ready, we know we have the money and pull the trigger?
No, we would go into full design for both of those projects. We would design them to their full design, and throughout the construction phase, this is what we did with the Performing Arts Center. We designed the project with the front and the back of house. And we knew that we couldn't afford both of them. So we phased phase 1 to be the shell and phase 2. We can do that with both of these projects.
So you want to go to construction documents? For
We want to go to
everything.
DSA and get stamped
And you can go to
approval.
DSA and then you can value engineer if you have to. Okay, thank you.
Correct.
So now it's.
That's the intent would be to start designing these projects, and that ultimately the stadium would go in summer of 26 if approved, and the East Wing would go probably in the spring of 27.
And the Laguna would happen this coming summer.
This Laguna, we're trying to get done as soon as possible. We don't see any reason why we can't start while school is in session with this project.
So even though you recommended prioritizing East Wing and Stadium, really you're recommending prioritizing Laguna first.
All three of the projects so that we can move them forward in the design
Okay.
phase. And we will work with, we will continue to provide regular updates to you on the budgeting piece.
Okay, thanks. It took a while. to
Sorry.
Get it through there, but.
Those,
So is the board clear about what we're being asked to consider?
yeah, I have a comment I'd like to make. I really believe we have got to do the East Wing and the L12 classrooms. The L12 classrooms are just not functional as chemistry classrooms. They never have been. My daughter had physics in that classroom and it was despicable and just not appropriate. And they need to be moved down with their compatriots in that East Wing. And I think it makes such good sense to move the audiovisual up into that space. I just think it's going to be such a much better opportunity for everybody. And there desperately needs to be a change. And with us being able to move that culinary arts into their new building, it's kind of a no-brainer for us to go that route. So I think it's really, really vital, and it gives us the classroom space, and it's the, of all of these, other than beautifying this campus, it gives the teachers and our staff what they really, really need right now.
And, you know, it was easier to get the consultant contract on the facelift here. Those other projects are a little more complex, right? And we needed to see where your priorities were, and Jenny will be working to bring those back in the future board meeting.
Yes.
Yeah.
Should you approve the recommendation as?
So if we approve tonight and we find that something comes in way above budget, are we gonna then reprioritize to kind of Tetris the projects into what we have?
We would really work on that value engineer and that phasing piece. So we've already talked about the east wing. We're looking for a full, the way the plans are shown right now, it's a full remodel. We could do a partial remodel on the, sorry, I'm getting my directions. Is that the south side, the south piece, and then do a light modernization on the northern part. So we're already thinking of how can we afford these projects? But also, should we go and design them to what we want them to be? Because otherwise we're paying DSA fees twice. We're going back and designing twice.
Sure.
We would be designing to what we think these facilities should be built like. And hopefully we're as lucky as we were with the performing arts, and we're able to go seamlessly into that phase too. It's just ends up being cost prohibitive for us to go back and redesign it again, but we are open to that as well. If you're concerned about overcommitting, you're not overcommitting on the priority or the budget. We're gonna go design it to the best of our ability with the intent of delivering a portion of each project. So with the stadium, we might have to value engineer out the terrace seating.
And the final general contract comes back to the board
Absolutely.
in the end anyway. So
We-
there's that final, like, we confirm the guy, we're not gonna.
We've traditionally brought back to this board the final plans for your blessing to
Right.
submit it to DFA with the most current cost estimate and a plan in place for how we want to construct it. So that's the point where we would really be talking budget. Plus, we have some projects that are currently out in the bidding phase right now. I'll get to that and very briefly, I hear where you're at. In my last item tonight, we have projects bidding for the small gym, the main gym, the HVAC, the roofing, the Forestville. We've just got a lot of stuff out there, so we don't know where those chips are gonna fall. So when I say 20 million, that's what it looks like right now.
And we'll do the best that we can with the bond monies we have, and obviously, you know, I spoke to, you know, our plan and commitment to ensuring that we get the support from our community, you know. In 26, you know, historically, West County has supported bond measures at a really, really high percentage, and, you know, we obviously feel it's the right time, but this could time out just right if we do the right things, and if the community has the appetite. If not, then we will value engineer the heck out of it, and make it work.
That'll be, VE will be my favorite word.
I mean, really what we're committing to is the soft costs,
Correct,
the 30%,
correct.
or maybe it was 20, but.
You're committing to the architect soft cost to
Yeah.
design the project.
Yeah.
And you're not even doing that tonight. You're just committing to giving us direction that these are the projects that you agree with us moving forward with. On the subsequent item, we're asking you to award a consultant contract so we can proceed forward with that
With the Laguna.
for the Laguna. And then we would hopefully in the next month or two, bring back consultant contracts for the remaining two projects so we can start the design for those.
Okay, so you got.
So
Debbie, you comfortable with this?
I have a question. So if we get to a point that we run out of the money and we've done a portion of it, are those projects usable? Like, because you talk about front of house and back of house, and so you could have gone ahead and used it, you just would have had some of the tech wouldn't have been there. So
Correct.
So
So
it's
the
not,
intent with, just for the Performing Arts Center, for the intent for the Performing Arts Center is we had no idea that we were gonna be able to go directly thereafter. We went after a bond measure and our community was amazing and gracious. And we were able to go right into construction.
right,
The goal, that project was good for 2 additional years plus a waiver. So we could get multiple years with those plans not having to be readdressed and taken back through DSA. So they're usable plans.
Oh, no, I'm sorry, and I know it was the pandemic, so it wasn't usable by students, but these buildings, if we start on them and then we don't end up having any money left in the bond fund and say we're not lucky and we can't roll right into that, do we have half-completed projects?
I will never bring to this board a project that we can't afford. I would never put you in a position where you guys are awarding a contract where we don't have funds available to us. That's where we would present a scaled down version of that project. We do not want to ever not have money in the bank to pay our contractors and stop construction. So I want to make sure I address that question is whatever the board commits to, and Andrew will speak to this, would be money that we have available to encumber to finish the project.
Finish a project, because everything on this priorities list, we don't exactly, but you're hoping to then value engineer it down. So that's why we're seeing numbers that are in excess of what we have.
Correct. And this is not untypical. We're just at the tail end of our bond measure, which is crazy to think because we have $60 million.
Yeah.
We just have a lot of that committed to other projects, as well as we've got our brand new CTE project. We're bidding that in February and hopefully bringing that in March for you guys to work. Those will be real numbers then, they won't be fake.
So are you comfortable with
Yeah.
basically giving priorities to facilities to proceed with coming back to us with a contract with drawings?
Right, yep.
Yeah. Okay, so what we are considering is approving the phase 2 bond project priorities. So all those in favor?
Aye.
We haven't taken public comment yet.
Oh, true. Good job.
Okay. Are there any public comments?
Do you have any in front of you?
Not about this.
Okay.
Good to go. Okay,
I just want to say that's fantastic, guys. Like, what's your name, sir?
Kevin.
Kevin?
And Denise is over there in the green.
Denise, you guys are killing it. I just want to say thank you. You guys are fantastic.
so I,
Oh,
okay,
okay.
approved.
Thank
You
you.
have your priorities. Okay, then the next item is approval of the contract with QKA for the Laguna beautification project.
Happy to answer any questions. This is as presented.
So moved.
Oh, I'm sorry. My apologies.
Second? I'll second. Discussion about, I mean,
I already talked about
yeah.
It's pretty exciting.
We're excited for this one.
Greg, thank you for that. I know that's something Jenny and I have talked about with those coming out. And if there's possibilities that it's not just all or nothing, I think that's what we'll look through. We want natural light in those classrooms. We know that data shows that it's important for learning.
And this is not a hugely expensive, complicated architecture project, so.
Okay, beautify the campus.
It's more the technical specifications to get it out on the street. It's a lot. It's a lot of different disciplines to bring together.
Right.
So, but no, it's
But
not.
that's
a
your problem.
That is my problem. I appreciate it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Awesome. Cool. Okay, consideration of approval of resolution number 3, determining that the Annalee High School modernization project is categorically exempt from CEQA. Do we have a motion?
I move that let me find the words so I get it right. I move that we adopt resolution number 3, September 24, 25, determining that the Annalee High School modernization project is categorically exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act and deciding to carry out the project.
Do we have a second? I'll second.
So,
Okay.
CEQA is a regulatory process that we're required to go through when you have projects like this. This board item was written by our legal counsel. As you'll note in the board item and in the resolution, it includes everything that we just talked about, even though you haven't prioritized those projects to move forward, because in the guise of CEQA, they just want to know what you might do on campus and they categorize that all into one project. They don't actually care if you do the project or not, or if you change the project. So if you note in there in the resolution, we talk about a modernization of a gym and or a new gym so that we can go through and categorize that. Typically with CEQA, they want you to master plan your campus or determine what you're going to do all at once, which is why this is all included. You'll also note that Laguna is not included in here. That project is exempt from any CEQA because it's all cosmetic. It's not regarding classroom facilities. So I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any. But I wanted to explain that.
Anyone have any questions? Debbie, you good? Elena, you good?
Thank you.
All right.
Let's move on.
Okay, all those in favor, roll call.
The roll call.
Oh, public comment?
Oh, roll call. Okay, sorry.
Public comment.
Do we have any public comment?
It was in.
Just call it again.
Debbie?
Aye.
Jean?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Louis, aye. Okay. Excellent.
I can breeze through this routine item for you. This is just a quick update on where we're at with the status of projects. We just talked about everything that was in schematic design. Small gym and big gym. At Annalee, we had our bidders conference yesterday. We had 60 plus contractors show up for a summer 2025 HVAC and roofing project. Really excited about that. We're starting the bidding phase for that now for the summer. 60 contractors. Subcontractors, you've already awarded it to the general, which is Wright Contracting. So we're starting that early so we can get materials and everything on board because we have 51 days to do that next summer. It's a lot to get done. The new CTE project, we're having, feels like every 2 weeks, we're having a meeting with the owner, architect, and contractor. We're starting the sequencing of that, possibly identifying some parking lot locations, because we're going to be taking away about 25 parking spots. So we're looking at areas where we can add parking. We think we'll pick up more parking and then we're taking away with some changes that we're going to make. We're also looking at the portables coming online, moving teachers, powering up 2 buildings, not all 6 classroom portables because we don't have power. We've got PG&E permits in. A lot of things happening in the background. Our goal right now with Plan A is to demolish those buildings during spring break. Portable project, we're just in DSA. We're sitting on Rich's desk right now, just waiting for comments. Rich takes a while. Just give everybody here his phone number. Forestville, Building F, HVAC and roofing, still in design. The boiler project just had its first advertisement for bidding this past Sunday. Next advertisement will go this coming Sunday. We'll have a bidders conference on Tuesday of next week with contractors and hope to award that project very soon. Everything else you've heard about or is complete.
So did I hear you say that the first thing you were talking about was roofing and HVAC for the main gym? And is that the building that we might tear down in the next 5 to 10 years?
Correct.
So what's your feeling about the cost benefit of putting that into a building?
The cost benefit is that roof needs to be replaced
like now.
Now, and if we had money available now to afford the design of it, I wouldn't recommend we move forward with that project at all. Based on the fact that it could be 10 years before a new gym comes into play, we're going to get 10 out of a 30 years.
Okay. And the HVAC is
HVAC is beyond its life.
Yes, it's desperate.
But if we put new HVC on and we tear that building down in 5 years, can we use it?
Definitely a possibility. Just depends on Title 24 code of regulations, which is the energy code, and they keep tightening their belt on that one. But the goal would be to salvage anything.
Yeah.
We know that we're also going to do a little cosmetic stuff inside because we have to deal with some of the gym floor issues.
Great, thank you.
But definitely was a lot on our minds.
What's that?
That's it? Okay.
Thanks, Jeannie.
Education services, consideration and approval of resolution number 5 regarding Hispanic Heritage Month. Chris, you want to explain that?
Motion.
Oh, okay. Do we have a motion?
So
Second? Second. Okay.
Thank you. So as you all know, we've been working as a DEI committee for the direction of the board of trustees regarding that initially came about regarding the pride flag and the great work that our students did in presenting that. The direction we received from the board was that we could adopt resolutions. A flag could be accompanied by a resolution if it were flown at the Capitol level, right? And the state or federal level, sorry. What we found is that with some of the heritage months that we identified that were recognized at the federal and state levels, there wasn't a clear flag for many of them. So what we're bringing forward to you tonight is the resolution to acknowledge Hispanic Heritage Month, which begins on September 15th. In the last DEI meeting, there was some really good discussion, and the students are interested in exploring possible flags that could be accompanied with these resolutions. Now, again, those flags aren't flying at the state and federal levels, so we would need to bring that back to the board for future consideration. So tonight, you are considering the approval of this resolution so we can honor Hispanic Heritage Month, and we'll be bringing these subsequent resolutions that support the Heritage Months for the others that we've discussed. So we'll be bringing those in the next meeting or two to ensure that we give the board an opportunity to adopt those resolutions to acknowledge those months before the months are in effect. Any questions?
Yeah, Chris, the resolution references, educational activities. Has anything been planned, and if so, what educational activities are planned to go around this?
So I think that's part of the DEI framework, and the work of the committee is to find opportunities to engage that component. So that's in process. And, we found a great website. I wanna thank and acknowledge Shannon Lawi that found Castro Valley. And so with the pride flag resolution, we really looked at what Castro Valley adopted and pulled that language. I did the same thing for this one. So I think there's possibilities in terms of what that looks like, Debbie, but that's something that, will come up a little bit in the framework discussion and in future board meetings. And definitely once this is approved, I'm gonna recommend in the agenda setting process for the next DEI meeting that we have that discussion. And we see what ideas that, Anita, Chuck, and Greg and the other members of the committee have as to how we really recognize that Heritage Month in the way that you're asking, so.
So, when we approved the resolution for the Pride Progress flag, we, made it an annual recurring event. We took off the year. Do we want to do, because it sounds like there isn't anything planned. It's begins in 4 days.
I'll leave that up to you.
So
That's why I presented it as I did with the pride flag. If you would like to see this be an ongoing so that we don't have to bring it back, then I'd be happy to adjust it. That'd be fine.
Well, that's part of my question, but the main part of the question is that the resolution indicates that we are going to offer some educational activities around this.
Correct.
And so I'm just asking what those are, and what you're saying is for this year, we do not have anything, but they're going to work on that
I
for
didn't
the
say
future.
that. I just don't know exactly what we're thinking and we're planning because I'm not necessarily in the weeds on that. But I know that there's some really good thoughts.
Is there somebody here that can speak to that?
I mean, all of our Spanish classes do work around Hispanic Heritage Month. Our ethnic studies class does as well. As far as a concerted effort campus-wide, I'm not aware of any plan at this time.
So that's the evolving process of DEI, our commitment to this work, exploring and working together as a committee with the greater community to find ways that do that, Debbie, so.
And does anybody know if if Hispanic Heritage Month is always from September 15th to October 15th?
Yes.
It is.
So does anybody else want to entertain an edit of this so that it's permanent and it's not just 2024? It's ongoing?
Well, it doesn't say here 20, or it does.
It does at the top.
No.
That's just, Debbie, I don't think that this limits us. Oh, I see what you're saying, September 15th through October 15th/2024. We could take that piece out.
Louis, can I make a comment?
Yeah.
I just want to respectfully say, one of the reasons that you do bring a resolution like this back annually is to have a resolution that's publicly shared year after year after year. So I might suggest that while it's more streamlined to not have a year on it, bringing the awareness year by year by year is actually the point of the resolution.
That's a good point. And that's what we do with Attendance Awareness Month, Teacher
That's a good idea.
Appreciation.
Okay.
But I did take the direction of the board to take that out of the pride flag resolution.
I think it's a good idea. Let's just bring
Leave
it.
it as it is and bring it back. I mean, that's how you celebrate the work that we've done on an annual basis and make it aware. Thank you.
And if we could maybe have a brief update, maybe in your report next week or next month, what kind of activities took place around this?
I actually think that'd be great to have the DEI committee come back and report.
And
And
let
I
us
think
know.
that when we get to the subsequent item, we still have some work to do. And, the intention is to, on at least a biannual basis, have the DEI committee present to the board of trustees. So absolutely.
I have a really quick question, if that's okay?
Yeah.
How can my question is how can other awareness months like Asian American Pacific Islander and Black History Month, what are we doing to include?
They're all coming.
Okay.
We're just ahead of those
All right.
months, so we're just taking one at a time.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, they're all coming.
That's all.
Yeah. We got it.
We have one for the.
Six.
Yeah.
There's
Six.
six, yes.
And that's been, part of our process. Again, just, hats off to the student activists and the students who brought forward pride flag proposal, because I think it gave us some work around this. And again, we found a model district that has adopted resolutions recognizing those heritage months that are also recognized at the state and federal levels. The flag component was a little complex, but I think it's something that we can talk about as a committee and maybe come back to the board with some recommendations. Give the students some empowerment there to hone in. There were so many different flags to look at for this particular month, as well as the other months that are gonna come back as resolutions for those heritage months. So we want to be ahead of September 15th, and we think that this is the right thing to do. So that's our recommendation to the board, is to adopt this resolution.
Any further discussion, comments?
I would just say that plan to do some empathy circles with our Hispanic students to find out what they'd like to see.
Yeah.
At a school site, as like Lily said, we do a lot of things to honor Hispanic heritage, not just during the month, but it coincides with Dia de los Muertos, some things like that we also do. I want to ask.
I think that's great.
Okay, should we vote?
Yes, please.
Does it need to be a roll call?
Yes.
Roll call vote, Debbie,
Yes.
Jamie,
Yes.
Louis, aye.
Great.
Okay, Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Committee Framework Presentation.
So this is not an action item, and I'll just kick it off, and then I'm gonna have Louis talk about the Student Unity Network. So the DEI committee has been working on this for over a year. And I'd like to note that, the work of our student activists and the student activist demands, as well as the work of our prior DEI coordinator and the final report that was left behind, that's much of what you see in the appendix. And we grappled with what Louis has referred to as a healthy tension in terms of accountability, making sure that we educated members of our community or our committee that aren't necessarily familiar with some of the systems and structures and kind of the labor relations, the contract. that was all part of our robust discussions, and we went back and forth quite a bit, and I think it was a good process. I know there are some concerns that have been brought to my attention. I have some feelings as well. But I want you to know the historical context and the work that's gone into this. This is not something that the board is approving tonight. It's not something that we discussed that the board would approve when we adopted the resolution and decided to work on this framework, because it's an evolving document and will continue to be refined and considered. So Louis, you want to give us a little bit of context as to how this kind of got started?
So, in April of 22, 2.5 years ago, some parents got together to talk about how we could support a better focus on DEI in school. This was shortly after the whole promposal thing and the Office of Civil Rights suit and bad press, and some of us had kids that were in Annalee, and some of us had kids that were 8th graders going to Annalee the next year. And so we started meeting and talking about how we could be supportive, and what was clear was that we didn't want to be a watchdog group so much as a trusted advisor or helper group. We realized that tackling DEI is big, long-term, in some ways expensive project that's about changing people's attitudes, and it's a long-term teaching project. It's not a watchdog project. And so that summer, Chris got hired, and we got a meeting with Chris, and to our surprise, he was very supportive of the ideas. And yes, we could have an official DEI committee that could be authorized by the board. And that happened, and a lot of amazing work has happened. It's been really a rewarding process, not always easy, but a really good give and take. And it's a living document. It's meant to change, and the more input we get, the better. Lily, I know you have some comments, and I think that's fabulous. I mean, it'll be better if everybody understands it and buys into it and improves it. So it's great. That's kind of the history. Anita, you've been kind of riding this horse the past year or two. Yeah. Really well. And so thank you.
Sorry, I can't help myself, even if I'm tired. Yeah, I would say that the document had a process that took place that I ended up sort of grabbing the reins of when I took this position. And what I did was I started having conversations with as many different constituency groups on our campus as I could. And we would sit in empathy circle, you know, cone of confidence, you know, tell me how it's really going and what you'd like to see and what you'd like to have take place to make things better on campus. And those things, those ideas were written down and brought forth. I invited our teachers to come and look at the document in process and talk about their goals and concerns and things they wanted to add to it. I talked to our paraeducators, tried to speak with everybody that I could to get their representation about what, you know, how we could structure something that would support this educational project, this cultural change project that, you know, is influenced not just by the culture of the campus itself, but the wide world and what we all bring to the experience of being on our campus. So that's kind of how the document sort of ended up having all these things get written down. I remember the first meeting that I attended, we all kind of went around and talked about why we wanted to be on the committee. And there wasn't a dry eye in the house, you know, because we all have our personal hurts or our dear friends or family hurts that we wanted to do something about. And so as we look at this document, as you look at it, You know, there's the goals and objectives, and then there's this big list of appendix. And so we may end up, you know, changing how that looks or how that's presented ultimately, but that's kind of where it came from, and how it originated. So,
And it metamorphosed from like an action plan.
yes.
It was very much accountability driven for all staff, including district leadership and site leadership. Went back and forth. I think the framework is a representation of, you know, what the DEI committee stands for, the work that we want to do. And then the appendices were recommendations from other members of the group and folks that, you know, as Anita spoke to, the constituents, student activists, the former DEI coordinator, recommendations, and we went back and forth and ensuring that everybody on the committee understood what the administration can expect, what we can do, how we might go about it differently than it was recommended. We really want this to feel like we're doing this with our community and not to anyone in terms of that accountability piece. But that took some months to get through, as you recall. So
Yeah, and there's like these big areas where we tried to sort of focus some goals and objectives. For example, you know, things we could do with discipline to broaden the process and maybe add in a little bit of restorative conversation. So, you know, examples that are already taking place this school year. I've had conversations with students that had been expelled and are back on campus to kind of support them back into the community. You know, how's it feeling now? What are you thinking about what you did? What kind of experience are you having on campus? Just kind of like that. We're doing little things like students doing small things that are causing a little bit of trouble, not big things that we have where we're supposed to suspend or whatever, but smaller things. I would have a conversation with that student and ask them, how might you make it right? And so what they might do is apologize to the people that they scared when they drove too fast on campus or something. They have some kind of other, you know, appropriate consequence. And then this conversation where there's a restoring of relationship, something like that. So just these little pieces, disciplines one, systems, structures. We're looking at all different aspects and how to create more equity, inclusion, belonging, those two things.
well said. And I had a really nice conversation with Lily on my way in, and so I know that, you know, once the board's done with their questions, we'll take public comment. I think it's really important for us all to hear her thoughts. So any questions from the board?
I have some questions and some comments. And thank you for this work. This is a great body of work. I can really see how much effort went into it. And Louis, thank you for your overview, because that actually answers one of my first questions. You know, this kind of work, the DEI work, really has two prongs. There's the prong of helping to educate hearts and minds and help people learn how to be better citizens and make a better school climate. And I think that's really the main goal that is the intention here. But the other piece, and we're gonna be talking about that later, so it's convenient that it's on this, is explicitly, and this is the accountability piece that maybe isn't part of the DEI framework, explicitly informing all members of our school communities about what behaviors are and are not accepted here at this place. You might have opinions that aren't acceptable here, but this is a federally funded institution, and there's certain things you can't say, certain ways you can't act. And a friend of mine was at a hospital at UCSF and took a picture of a sign that said, let's see, abusive, threatening, and discriminatory language will not be tolerated here. She works in a school, not one of our schools. And she said, this would be great. Schools should have this, because that just sets the tone. These behaviors are not allowed here. And I think that would really make an impact on the people who have a hard time with the culture. And that comes more from the Title IX portion, and we can talk about that later. And I was wondering on page 4 on systems and structures, we talked about intentionally examining structures and systems for biases, and then building an accountability structure into the DEI framework. So that's then going into that second prong. And does that get messy? Is the DEI coordinator going to be a titles coordinator? Is that anything that's come up around that?
Well, the titles coordinator is our executive director of HR, who supports the work of our DEI committee and our leaders on our campus. So we don't want to put Anita as a member of the bargaining unit and a teacher in a position where she's acting as an administrator, right? We understand the balance between her work and her connection as a teacher on special assignment with the compliance components of ensuring that we provide a safe place for both students and staff and adhere to policy, right,
Yes.
and law.
I think
So-
that's a good idea. I think that's the right decision, but I think that whole reporting process needs to be, and we'll hear more about that later. Because now with the new Title IX rule, any awareness of these violations needs to then go through that process. So there would be a reporting to the titles coordinator.
That's right.
And so then with students having a firm grasp of their legal rights, it's really everybody having a firm grasp. Because students, it's no longer filing a report isn't necessary. So I just want to make sure that students are aware of that, staff is aware of that. So the academics and curriculum, page 5, is there a process for ensuring that curricula are relevant and connecting the historical content, diverse and multicultural content is incorporated? Because a lot of this is done within the classroom.
Debbie, can I respond to some of this? So the committee wrestled with this, but the intention was to create a high-level document that clearly set out the goals for our school community about how we want to integrate concepts of DEI into the school. The tactics of how that gets actually implemented are not the purview of the DEI committee. We have no way of being able to tell teachers how to teach and administrators how to administrate. So this is like, here's the goals, here's what we would like to be. Please help us in implementing that with your skills.
And
so we're not going to get into in the document what words are allowed or not allowed, or how we deal with a particular violation.
And the
Well,
specific.
teachers have a great deal of leeway with their own curriculum. So I'm just wondering if we're creating a document here by a school committee that's saying we're going to do this. Administrators can't force teachers to put certain things into the curriculum either.
I think that's why it says up here at the top, suggestions.
No, it's on page 5, which is the actual framework.
Yeah, looking at page 5.
So, you know, if you read that as an objective, right? So what are we doing? Like, if maybe the question is, what have we done, right, so far? We're doing curriculum audits. We're ensuring that the departments and we have translated materials. We've invested financially. Anita's having those conversations. You know, we're working through the transformational coaching process with those that are really willing to explore that new school model and those concepts of standards-based grading and creating an inclusive classroom. So, you know, we understand, you know, where some of those limitations are and the autonomy that our teachers deserve within their rights, right? So, you know, it's creating a culture, right? Bringing people along with you in a direction that we'd like to go and not doing it to them, right? This work is going to take 10 years and we're committed to that. And then it's going to take beyond the 10 years as the world evolves and our school and students and adults evolve. So
this sort of plugs in with that transformational coaching in some ways.
I think it does.
And it provides supports. There were some things that I wanted to ask about whether, we need to allocate some funding. There were some things that were really great suggestions in here. Let's see if I can find them because,
But we're doing that at the administrative level. Those funds don't necessarily need to be allocated by the board because they're incremental, right? And a lot of it's built through the LCAP process, which you were a part of. So, but I would love to take some thoughts and feedback from the board, and obviously if it's a big enough financial expenditure, then we'll bring that to the board for approval. But many of the things that we do at the local level are decisions that we make based on prior direction or the district strategic plan or specific initiatives or the needs of the different departments or the adoption cycle for curriculum in the different core areas. So we're evaluating where there might need to be some resources and working with our committee to hear what they are recommending, because we're hearing what our students and teachers and staff need, right?
I think, yeah, it's on page 13. One of the recommendations was to improve or increase staffing to address persistent non-attendance issues and provide in-person interventions.
And that's in the
wondering if
appendix,
there was-
right? So the appendix is a little arbitrary in that regard. It's different than the framework. We're not gonna be able to execute all the things that are in the appendix.
Yeah.
And we're gonna hear.
Is that one that we want to though? Is that something, how do we
Which
all
one was
feel
it
about
again,
that?
Debbie? 'Cause I think
The, improve or increase staffing to address persistent non-attendance issues and provide in-person interventions. Is that?
Yeah, we allocated another vice principal, and one of the vice principals is taking on a project to reduce and address chronic absenteeism.
Okay,
That's big.
so that's taking
Where we can
place.
put our money.
And,
I can
and
find
that's
probably
something-
another 20 to 30 examples for it.
Yeah.
But let's be really clear about the appendix. So if the main document is the objectives, the appendix is, hey, here's a bunch of different ways that the objectives might be implemented. They're just brainstorming ideas on a whiteboard to stimulate thinking on the parts of people reading the main document about, oh, how could we actually start to do some of these things? It's not prescriptive.
Yeah. And that, actually, on this same page is where I put my note about those signs that use CSF, because it reminded me of this, the 1, 2, 3, the fourth checkbox down, develop and enforce a zero tolerance policy posted visibly and made accessible that results in immediate and clear consequences from the administration for students that commit racist, discriminatory, and derogatory acts posted visibly and made accessible.
And that's definitely not an option, right? I mean, obviously, there's law, regulations, policies that have evolved, and that's part of what we'll talk about when we get to the CSBA policies. And as you're well aware, we're implementing the first iteration of some Title IX training on Monday. All of our employees, staff, and I encourage the board to take those, especially that class, that course, in light of the new legal implications. So I think the term, zero tolerance is thrown around on different campuses, and what does that really look like? I think with regard to law and policy and regulations, we have to abide by those, and our staff is gonna be equipped to do that and ensure that the students are aware, that the staff is aware of their obligation. The reporting mechanisms are clear. I'm really proud of the website. I think it reads well. It's got a lot of great information. If you can find all the resources, it talks about Title II, Title VI, Title IX, and Anita's got some great videos. We've addressed so many issues that have been historically prevalent within our district within the past 2 years. I think that's something to celebrate, is the progress we've made and the commitment, the unwavering commitment. This is ongoing work, inevitably.
Yeah, and the zero tolerance isn't what I've meant to highlight in reading that.
Yeah.
It's posting visibly, these behaviors are not allowed. Because,
Debbie, we're down on the weeds here.
well, I think that one thing I think would really make a big difference in school climate, and this is on the agenda, so how do other folks feel about
Maybe a
having
nicer way to say it.
Lily, would you like to come address?
Well, I wasn't, no. I was wondering if anybody else has thoughts around, explicitly having some signage along with whatever other educational outreach we're gonna have to let people know. I know there's training going on for staff. But I think the more people that are aware that there are these rules, even if they might behave in these ways at home, in their personal life, that they learn that on campus. Like, it's separate, there's two different things, teaching people to be kind and be aware of their bias, and then there's the other, just stopping people from acting on it, which I think could be a lot faster. I mean, the other things are all, they take time and education, but.
But Debbie, I think we've got to give our leaders, our teachers, our staff, and even our students the credit for the work that's been done. And, you know, we've had Anita here twice in the last year to report on her progress. Really, really great things that are happening. Our administrators on a yearly basis and the new team has really looked at their process of going through the student handbook, which articulates and addresses what's tolerated and what's not. These things are happening. So I just want to make sure that it, you know, with respect to our staff and the folks with boots on the ground, we've got to give them some credit that there's been a lot of progress made, and we're aware of that. There is signage that could go up, especially regarding the new Title IX regulations and how that reporting mechanism has changed. We have some sample signage. Those things we're acquiring through these trainings, and we're in the first month of absorbing these new laws. The law took place as of August 2024, August 1.
Right.
Anything that happened prior, UCP, prior format, prior way of reporting, prior way of taking action. So we're committed to this, and I just want to acknowledge the work and the awareness of our teams to ensure that those policies are implemented and that our students and staff are safe.
Can I make a comment? Thank you. I just wanted to reach out and thank Lewis for his and my conversation, because I too had some concerns with regards to the appendix issue. I loved the framework. I thought it was wonderful. And then I started reading the appendix and I got a little anxious because I thought, oh my goodness, how are we going to expect our teachers and our staff to do all of this stuff? And then, so I said, I gotta talk to Lewis, because I didn't want to blindside him at this meeting and get all angst-filled. And so Lewis talked to me, but he explained to me, and it was so thoughtful, and thank you, Lewis, because, and Chris has said it too, that this appendix is just some thoughtful suggestions for our staff and our community to look at, to garner some ideas of how might these wonderful framework ideas be put into action. And if anybody out there seems, has a desire to grasp a hold of any of these, I think that's wonderful. But I don't think it's an expectation that the DEI committee has, or that we as a board have, that our staff and our teachers are expected to step forward and do all of these things. And that I really appreciate. So thank you, Lewis. And thank you so much, Anita, for the hard work that you've done on this, and the rest of the DEI committee. I know it's been a lot of hard work, and I really, really commend everyone for the effort that has been made. It was much needed, and I think we are in a much better footing and moving forward. And I think, like Chris said, this is going to evolve. It's going to take time. But I really, really appreciate the hard work that everybody's put forth. And thank you, Chuck and Greg, also for serving on that committee and being a part of it.
I would like just to encourage everybody, as you read that appendix, and with some of the feedback I've heard, some of the feelings I've had, one thing that I had to do was put myself in the shoes and try to see that through the lens of people who've been harmed, people who've been wronged, people who've experienced discrimination within our school community. That's the voice of what's represented in some of those things that don't feel well when we read them as members of this staff or as members close to this work. So that being said, I think, you know, if you take that with a grain of salt and you put yourself in the shoes of those that have been discriminated, it feels a little bit different, right? So, but I do think it's really important to hear what Lily has to say. Any other questions for the board before Louis calls me?
Ms. Hammer.
Okay.
Please come.
Come hither.
Help us.
Anita's a treasure. She said she was tired and then she made so much sense and said such beautiful things. I can't make that much sense this time of night, so I have it written down. My concerns over the way the framework is structured, I have some concerns with what is in the actual framework, and I have concerns about the appendix existing on this framework. So I'm going to just read what I wrote so that I've got full sentences coming out of me. I'm speaking on this issue as a labor representative for WSCTA, but also as a general education teacher who has not been part of the DEI committee. I want to acknowledge the extraordinary work that was put into drafting this document. It shows goodwill and best intentions for our students in our school, clearly. That being said, I have concerns and I want them on the record because this is a district document. Even though it's not a board document, it's here before us. It's part of our district paperwork, so to speak, and it influences our discussions, as we just saw. The appendix inspired discussion among board members, and that means that it is a living document in this district and that we need to address it. The appendix has, first of all, the appendix has several issues that deal with labor violations. The word suggested on the title of the appendix does not go far enough for me to remove my concerns. This is a document. Having it here in writing means this is what you all are agreeing that should happen. These are ideas we like that we want you to do, mandated or not. That's what's here. So some of those concerns that I have are, it treads on our autonomous right to create curriculum that aligns with our department goals and the mandated state standards, which include a lot of DEI standards and goals for us to accomplish. Those are already in there at the state level, including specifically a reimagining of how the leadership teacher uses Tiger Transitions, which is part of his curriculum and his program. It says repeatedly that learning communities will hold each other accountable for implementing DEI in their curriculum. 4 times I found that one, holding staff accountable for implementing DEI. The second concern I have is grading. There's a suggested action on how we should grade students who enter school after suspension that caused quite a stir among some of the teachers. The grade book is the teacher's legal purview, and how we distribute and award grades is our decision. So that should not be in a district document. There is a suggested action item to have our classroom rules posted and mirror each other, and with suggestions for exactly what should be on them, but that is part of our curriculum and our classroom environment and should be the decision of the teacher. Our CSEA bargaining partners might have concerns regarding the directive or the suggestion that our registrar attends ARIES trainings biannually, which as a word itself is a problem. Biannually means every 6 months, and it also means every 2 years. So that specific word is problematic, but that's part of her job description and that's part of her negotiation process. Repeatedly, this document uses the language "and being held accountable for" in terms of implementing our DEI in the curriculum. The intentions here might mean that we look each other in the eyes and say, how is it going? How are you doing in your classroom? But the word accountability in a district document reads as actionable and threatening in a disciplinary way for employees. So I would caution the use of that language. It tells us that we should reimagine the evaluation tools for employees, but that's through the negotiation process. But that is not legal to have in this document. The district cannot tell labor partners what they want to negotiate outside of a very structured negotiation process. It suggests a well-designed screening process for applicants that would add 5 questions to an already lengthy interview process. It even suggests a potential role play with our interviewees, but those interview processes and questions are the purview of our district or our department chairs in our department's members. It makes DEI goals our primary professional focus with a suggestion that we attend DEI professional development quarterly. We only have 7 PD slots during the year, which would make DEI 4 of our 7 slots with our wide variety of needs for trainings in our district. The goal of implement accountability for the DEI coordinator that is listed is very concerning to me. That suggests employee discipline as the DEI coordinator is part of our bargaining unit, and it should not be in here. Suggestions that teachers and counselors communicate failing grades to students as they're starting to become a concern. But this is why we went to an online grading platform, Aries, I want to say 18 years ago, 17 years ago, and keeping that thing updated is us doing our job regarding communication with grades to parents, and going beyond that would add substantially to our workload. Most concerning to me is on page 16, where it says teachers and staff should be required to go to the PD, and meaning professional development. And if they don't, there should be consequences. That's a direct quote from our district document here. Sometimes in schools, we're so used to speaking to children that we turn and talk to our colleagues with that same language. But to me, there should be consequences is offensive language and goes back again to disciplining employees, and it's not appropriate. I'm opposed to the language on page 16 about hiring more staff for transformational coaching programs. There are deep concerns among our staff. And I mean, it's one of the things people talk to me about the most regarding the money being spent on teachers on special assignment and various support positions, as I was saying earlier about our communication coordinator opening. Hiring more folks when we don't have the data about how effective that program is yet, it's the cart before the horse. My concerns about the actual framework, I have a couple of them. On page 6, under staffing, objective 2 says create and implement new staff onboarding. That's good, we've done that. And all staff evaluation processes that support DEI goals, including interview questions that elicit cultural competency. So that's taking something that was out of the appendix and putting it into the actual framework document. We cannot have in there anything about staff evaluation processes or requiring departments to include interview questions relating to DEI. On page 7 of the actual framework, my concern is about objective 1, which starts on page 6 under staff development. Collaboratively create effective professional development opportunities that support equity and inclusion, including district site days, staff development, safety, and professional release days. That's good. But then it goes on to say, educational services TOSA to lead and collaborate with a variety of teachers, classified staff members, and students. 2 things. 1, putting that into the framework codifies that we have an educational services TOSA, which is typically a job handled in a district our size by the superintendent, educational services and curriculum development. So having this in here would then imply to me that the district goal is to retain that position. And also it goes on here to say exactly what her job duties are, which to me is creating a job description. And that's something that we don't do for our teacher staff here. Overall, I think that this was an incredible document that you all put together. I can't believe that you managed to put something like this together through committee. It's so hard to write 1 sentence with a group of people. Really, there are some really, really fine points in here. Before I'm done with the actual employment portion, I do want to say on page 4 under inclusive culture, objective 2, the entire school community makes progress toward healing the wounds of the historic El Molino and Annalee enmity. The word enmity to me felt like, this is going to sound like I'm over the top, but violence. Yeah. Enmity means hatred. Yeah. I've worked in this district for 20 years and I haven't felt hatred between us. I have felt rivalry, as schools have. Sometimes that rivalry goes too far, as it does between schools. And then, yes, horrible, awful feelings around having this school closed. Does that mean that we have hatred toward each other? I don't think so. I think that word is an overreach, and I wouldn't want to see it in the document of our districts. Thank you. Sorry to be so direct with all of this, but I wanted to be sure that you all have me on record saying my concerns regarding this before, even if it doesn't come back to you as an item for a vote. This is our district document. This is from one of our district committees, right? It's an advisory committee. I mean, published agendas and the whole, it's very official. And if this is our document, I think we need to make some serious revisions, including removing the appendix. The appendix maybe should live in a binder of the person who's leading the committee as ideas that have been flown over the years, but this should not be out, in my opinion. And there are just too many issues. It reads too much like what you want to see us do. And there's too much boundary crossing going on here. Thank you.
Can I make a suggestion, Lily, that you share your information with Lewis or with Anita, so that the committee then can take a look at that and maybe make some changes? Definitely. Thank you.
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing. Thank you. We need a copy of your red lines. Just a couple quick things. Thank you for your comment about the word enmity. You're totally right. Rivalry would be more appropriate. That's your spot on. There was a lot of discussion in the committee about whether to include the appendix to the board or not. Largely for, well, you have a more technical view of the union and hiring issues, which we need to know about. Part of it is there was quite a bit of healthy tension in the committee around how much is this document a high-minded philosophical wish list, and how much it doesn't really hold anybody accountable to make sure the stuff gets done. And there was a certain faction, I'll say, in the committee, largely students who have suffered some real harm around these issues here, who were adamant that there had to be, there has to be some accountability. We can't just put all these big ideas out there and then there's like nothing in the whole document about making sure that people take this stuff seriously. Coming out of students feeling like in prior years, they would complain about something or some harm would be done and nothing really ever happened. That's like nothing ever happened. So that's the tension. But from my personal view, I think you're right. I think as a official, call it document, we can't cross the legal hiring kind of mandates.
Well, you kind of said it when you said accountability, because as reading that document, it read as teachers accountability, teacher accountable. And as a staff member, I had some hurt when I read it. I felt like I'm not trusted. I felt like my degree in Latin American studies and 25 years teaching English learners is not seen here. Rachel Ambrose master's degree in international culture is not represented here. So accountability, yes, at the district level. Is the district following through on our goals? How do we measure that? Not how do we make sure that a teacher included a book from a person of the BIPOC community this month? That's where I would go with it.
Yeah.
Really helpful, thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, the document's only better with everyone's input, so thank you. Make sure we get your comments. Thanks.
I'll make sure. I'll make sure.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, I think we're at the bitter end of that item. Moving along, consideration of approval of recommended revisions from CSBA June and July updates for policies. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Do we have a second? I'll second.
So, I know there'll be some specific questions potentially regarding some of the policies. This is a second reading. Before you answer or ask specific questions, Leanne is prepared to speak a little bit high level to the Title IX policies. And then we're planning to agendize a formal presentation in October. And Dan has completed 6 of the 9 hours of training. There's a lot of work that's been done. Again, we're following up on this on the 16th. Positive Images is coming in to do some hands-on PD training with our staff on October 7th. So we felt like October we would have a more complete presentation for you. But I'm gonna kick it to Dan because he may answer your questions that you might have.
Thanks. And I did have it at 3 hours this morning, so I'm up to 9 now. I can show you my lovely ever-growing binder to prove it. As Chris mentioned, I am going to prepare a more in-depth report specifically on Title IX, the October meeting. So given the time tonight, not necessarily going to go very deeply into things, although if there are specific questions, happy to address those. I know one of the questions is, since this took effect, the new Title IX regulations took effect August 1st, we are now living them. And so as a result, we are having to figure out our processes as we go. So as we're learning what these new regulations mean versus the 2020 regulations, we are actually in real time dealing with Title IX complaints. So in that regard, we already have been able to utilize many of the forms and processes that we're learning from these various trainings and getting better as we go, I would say. But we have had a couple of instances already. Debbie alluded to this earlier. The big change in this from the 2020 regulations to 2024 is we no longer need to wait for the universal complaint to be filed. If a employee sees something, hears something, becomes made aware of something, it needs to be reported, much in the way that we are mandated reporters for child abuse. It's very similar now around what is not being called sexual harassment anymore. It's sex-based discrimination. So it's a much more inclusive terminology. But as employees see, hear, observe what might be violations or sex-based discrimination, is to be brought forward. Now, Chris mentioned earlier that I'm the Title IX coordinator for the district. It's required that we have a single coordinator, but we are allowed to, for lack of a better word, deputize others. So in our case, the site administrators really are taking on that role in a significant way. They are much closer to faculty, they're much closer to the students, they have the relationship. So they are fielding these complaints that are coming forward or these issues that come forward. My role as a Title IX coordinator is to be made aware of those and then make sure that the entire process then of an investigation, the reporting, the appeals process, all of that is carried out. And so we're working on those details still as we speak, but that's the big picture kind of process. Chris mentioned that the Title IX training that all staff will take part in. We have carved out time this coming Monday at our PD day. Every member, certificated classified administrators, will be completing that training. We're building in time that day for them to complete the online training if they haven't already. They may have already because they have access to them online. But they will have time on that day so that we make sure that everybody by the 16th will have done that training, as well as I'm going to be giving a presentation, more of an awareness presentation. The administrators I've already been able to share some of this information with, but so that the entire staff, at all levels, will at least hear this distinction between that there are these new regulations in place and what their role as a staff member will be. So that's coming 16th, and then we have other groups that will be presenting as well. Just around some of the supporting measurements. That's one of the big differences in Title IX as well, is part of what we are now responsible for is when a complaint is made, no matter what the findings are, we are obligated to provide supporting measures to both the complainant, the person who was targeted, but also the person who was accused. And so we have to, it's a much more supportive, restorative type of approach than the previous 2020 regulation. So I don't want to go any further down the road tonight unless there are specific questions, but there will be a much more in-depth report, and I can take questions in the October meeting.
Thank you, Dan. That answers my questions, and I'll look forward to hearing more in October.
Any questions from the board on the other policies, as this is a second read? I'd encourage y'all to take a vote. move on.
Actually, I did have a question
Yes, sir.
about the, was the filling vacancies? So has that always been the policy of, to have the board elect somebody?
There are options with the policy as noted in the documentation. Yes. If you notice, I did include process this month that shows you which options and which one we selected. What we did with any of the policies that gave us an option was we looked at our prior practice, had discussions around what we felt was our best recommendation. And so, yes, that's been our process. And so we stayed status quo. We felt like that was the best of the three options. We examined the prior policies. It's a tedious process. There were a lot, and I want to thank my team. Everybody works on these in cabinet, so. And is that clear?
Yeah, I was just wondering, if that's all the way it's always been.
And many other districts do it that way as well. It's common. Any other questions on policies?
Ready to vote? Comments? All those in favor?
I just want to point out a technical thing on the agenda. It copied over from last time, because it says this is a first reading only.
I actually noticed that after we posted, and I forgot to mention that, so that is noted in minutes. This is the second read. Thank you for pointing that out.
Today is September 11th, so I think that's probably understandable.
Yeah.
Clerical.
Okay, number 4, public hearing on sufficiency and insufficiency of instructional materials.
So with this process, you open public hearing, bang the gavel, call the time.
Public hearing is hereby called to order at 9:18 p.m.
That's in the minutes.
Do we have any public that would like to comment? Second, the public hearing.
You can end it. I like to give it a minute, but.
No, you don't have to give it.
I know.
We're waiting a minute.
End of public hearing. Consideration of approval of resolution number 6. Sufficiency or insufficiency of instructional materials. Do we have a motion?
I move that we approve resolution number 6, September 2024, 2025 on sufficiency or insufficiency of instructional materials.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
So that's an annual process. Want to thank our principals for working with their staffs and we've learned some things over the past few years. We're sufficient, but we can do better. And, Chuck's gotten some good feedback from some different departments over the past few years, as has Greg, in terms of where we can upgrade our curriculum or things that might be needed to be just more than just sufficient, right? This is like minimum compliance stuff. We want to be excellent in terms of the curriculum and materials that our students have an opportunity to engage with. So if there's no other questions, I'd recommend that the board take the roll call vote and we keep it rolling.
Debbie?
Aye.
Jeannie?
Aye.
Ron?
Aye.
Louis, aye. Great, thank you. Consideration of ratification of full-time and short-term independent study contract. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Do we have a second? Sean, second.
Okay, so the major noteworthy changes are to the short-term independent study agreement. And that was new laws that basically moved the window of opportunity. There was a minimum 3-day, maximum 14-day. Now it's 1 to 15. We don't know if we'll get requests for 1 or 2 days. It's kind of cumbersome. I know that we've also evolved our process a bit in terms of what we've allowed people, families in requests for a short-term independent study. And so, we're actually going to collect some data. I had a good conversation with Jeannie. I understand why the changes were made. The big changes over the years were family vacations, things that were essential, if you will. And, when you offer independent study for those requests, it's a catch-22. Most of the times, from what I understand, and I'm going to look at some data, we don't collect ADA on it anyway. And we're just creating a mechanism for people to take vacations outside of 186 calendar day, right? Which we don't believe is advantageous for student learning, for the continuum of the the student's experience. So it's for those reasons that there are some specific criteria in which these families can request, and that's a local decision. I want to look at that data because what I'm hearing and what I've seen in prior districts is that, you know, if you approve the independent study, they're going whether you approve it or not. And most of the time, you're not collecting ADA because the work isn't completed and all those pieces aren't connected. So Paula and I had a great discussion the other day, and she said we can look at that. And we can consider, and if I believe that it makes sense to open that up again, as it had been in the past, then I'll bring it back to you. The full-time independent study, we just wanted it to reflect the new branding of West County Eye Academy. There was no technical changes there. But we did get a really good suggestion from Gianna to change, you know, anticipated start date. Because the most important date is the date down on the signature lines, and that was muddying the waters. And Andrew and I and the administrative team and the folks that work directly with independent study have really made a concerted effort to ensure that we are not, you know, that we're compliant and we're not being audited. We work with our auditors. We had really good conversations with them in reviewing the samples from last year's no audit findings. So we've tightened up and we want the process to work. And, you know, I want to thank all the folks that are involved. You know, Greg and Gianna are really the point leads on this. You know, Greg's got kind of a smaller group of students that would, you know, go on independent study, but he's working closely with Gianna to support some of the work that has to happen with the larger number of requests at Annalee. And then obviously the counselors and the teachers and everybody involved. So wanted to be transparent about those minor changes, but we did have to put them into play to align with the new law and to get them in the hands of our folks and get those documents signed at the beginning and prior to the beginning of the year. But I wanted to bring it back to the board for ratification. Questions?
Yes, something you just said, Chris, and I think you explained it later. You mentioned we don't collect ADA for independent study, and that's not a mechanism of independent study doesn't allow for it. It's that students, that students don't complete it, and so therefore, but if they complete it, we do collect the.
So that just startled me when you said that. I thought there was something, because in the. It's a really small amount through short-term independent study that we get for the amount of students that go on. And what we actually, at the end of the day, actually collect.
And there's two ways to look at this. Think of all the time off that families have. We only get 180 opportunities to teach these kids. And I want our teachers to have every opportunity to make a difference in their lives. And we want our families to use the really amazing calendar with all their vacations built in and plan around that. But again, I want to look at some data. I think it'll be interesting. I grappled with this in Cloverdale, and we made some decisions based on data when we looked at it. We knew that families were going to leave whether we approved it or not. So because we had a large population of families that on an annual basis visited Mexico, we actually changed our practice and we allowed them to go with the independent study. But then again, it was that catch-22. But we knew they were going to leave anyway. So the students that were diligent and then it was a lot more on the workload of the folks in front of the office and myself at such a small school, you know, having those conversations. Look, like, we're going to approve this because we know you're going anyway and we want you to keep learning. Please do this work. It's for your benefit and the district. So I'm curious to see what that data likes. Paul and I'll look at it over the next few weeks and we can consider whether or not there's a change warranted for next year.
Okay, so then the question that I had from reading through it is, you know, I went and looked at the manual that lists the excused absences.
Yeah.
And if a family has an opportunity to do something extraordinary, not a special vacation, you know, not a vacation, but they have an extraordinary educational travel event, it says that the site administrator can allow it. So it is possible.
Yeah,
It just has to be requested.
Sure.
And then it's based on whether you're just leaving early for Christmas or you have something special at a certain time of year and that was the only chance. Yeah, yeah. October is a good time. The lines are short.
Just put that on the record. So yeah, well, we obviously wanna capture our ADA, we wanna educate our kids, we wanna do things the right way, but I think this was a good discussion, even though it was just a simple minor change and.
Elena has some.
Oh, thank you, yeah.
Yeah, this is just a really small question, but since we're discussing advanced study, I thought I would bring it up. I realized that we don't offer AP courses during advanced study.
We do,
I have an email from my counselor saying that we don't.
if you request it, so that's misinformation, so we actually. So,
Let's get that out there.
but only for full-time independent study students. So you can't be, if you're not full-time West Carolina Academy for Annalee, then we don't offer that. That is correct. But if you were full-time, that's one thing that's great about our online learning platform is we've got a menu of courses. And when a student requests an AP course, we afford them that opportunity and we pay $3.95 for that kid to have access to a teacher. Whereas the other courses are more independent and they'll work with Jane Mays to access that curriculum. So for our West County iAcademy folks, and again, that serves students earning an Annalee diploma, 82 spots, and 8 students that are gonna earn a Laguna program. For the Annalee students, we've expanded elective offerings as part of that greater menu, and we are offering any AP course that mirrors the AP courses that we provide on campus. So I'm sorry, you're an in-person student, and I understand why we can't do that, but let's look at some dual enrollment stuff for you.
Woo.
Okay.
I just want to say thank you, Chris, for our conversation and thank you for looking into that. I know that like one of the extraordinary circumstances that you were talking about, Debbie, could very well be one of our former trustees, Miss Noe. Her children are in a high-level competitive skiing situation and will probably come to Chuck and ask in February or whenever it is, can we have that time off? Because they will probably go to nationals in Indiana or wherever they go. And if we say no, they're gonna go anyway, and we'll lose that ADA. I can guarantee you that she'd do the work, but those are the things that troubled me, because I know that those are some extraordinary circumstances. I mean, I have a grandson who's an extraordinary 6-year-old car racer. When he's in high school, is he still gonna be doing that? It could very well could be, and it could very well be a circumstance that may be something he will need at some time too. I don't know. But I just would hate for us to lose those opportunities if we can afford those. So I'm glad that, we can certainly look into it, but thank you, Chris.
Of course, especially since we don't offer ski week, which by the way, when I was a teacher, I
Yes.
was always very jealous of that. Do we want to move this forward to a vote?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Ready to vote?
Yes.
Debbie?
No,
Is it
just a regular vote.
Oh, I'm sorry. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, first reading of instructional materials for English language arts.
So I have a request, to purchase novels for grade 11 ELA. I've got the novels ready to put on public display. I've actually, this request was really diligent in terms of when it was, sent to us. Still waiting on some quotes. It's the first read. We'll get them on display. I'll get the quotes back so you can see what the cost is. These are supplemental, novels and texts that are gonna accompany the ELA curriculum. And again, ELA is very unique in that the best ELA programs teach through a variety of different texts, not a prescribed textbook, right? So good process, and we've got some other requests for curriculum. I'm excited to continue to invest in upgrading our curriculum across the board. So
Can I say something about this one?
please.
Yeah. So I think it's important for you to know that this actually grew out of the cohort pilot. So this summer, one of our US history teachers, one of our English teachers, Jason Carpenter, Blake Leibowitz, worked together to sort of curriculum map, find out areas of affinity, talk about cool projects they could do together with students, dream a little bit about what novels could reinforce standards in both US history and English 11, and came up with this list to the question earlier about what staff is doing about integrating diverse materials into the curriculum. I think this is a great example.
I'd love to read some of these books.
Thanks, John. Any other comments? All right, first read, done to vote. All right, we're moving on to business services. Consideration of approval of the 23-24 unbudgeted actual. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
I'll second.
Second.
All right, thank you. All right, so we're looking at the unaudited actuals for 23-24, and this is the closing of the books after last fiscal year. As we look at this and we look at the second slide there.
Yeah, look over at you anymore.
Oh, thanks. So we'll just kind of dive into that now that you can see that. So when we closed the books here, we had some additional revenue that came in. Revenue was pretty well on target compared to what was budgeted, a variance of about 0.4%. So we're able to really keep an eye on the revenue and seeing where that's coming in. We look at really the federal revenue was a little off just because of unearned revenue that came in. So we had the cash, we didn't actually spend it. We can't recognize it as current year revenue. And then we had state revenue that came in through the Cal Hope program, which was for facility use. The California or the Classified Summer Assistance Program was some of that other state revenue that came in, and lottery came in a little bit higher along with the transportation reimbursement. So, and the adjustment to the fair market value, which is just a booking adjustment that we have to do with our cash held at the county treasury. We have to make the adjustment for what is actual fair market value on June 30th. This year, the fair market value on June 30th was at 98.56%. So if they went to sell it on June 30th, we'd only get 98 cents on the dollar. So the prior year was at 96%. So we were able to rebook that realization about 2%, about $145,000. So with all those adjustments, additional difference between where we were at budget adoption to where we actually closed the books, 130,000. The next slide, we look at expenditures. We're looking at expenditures. This is the shot in the dark of where we really what's really going to come out at the end of the year. The past 3 years for expenditures, we've really had happened savings I don't want to call it savings, but to where the expenditures didn't come to fruition was in special ed. And that over the past 3 years, it's been about $1 million. That's where we're looking at non-public schools, non-public agencies we don't know what student needs are going to be. So they have been budgeted at that, but now that we've had this trend now over the past 3 years of about $1 million sitting in special ed at the end of the year, and we know we have about 17 in non-public school placements each year, and that's what it's kind of been about the past 3 years each year. So can we really lower that down? And that's going to have to be the conversation that we have, cabinet level special ed. Can we make that adjustment? We're already setting aside $500,000 of the ending fund balance for special ed. Plus we have the additional $1 million sitting budgeted in special ed. I mean, that could be, 3 to 5 placements if that really happens.
Yeah.
So where do we leverage that risk? We know, so that's about $1.5 million we're already setting aside as a component of ending fund balance and as a part of the budget. So we got to kind of make that determination. And in the long run, it helps us in the NYP. That's where it's really going to help to where we can make those adjustments in the multi-year projection, depending on how we do that. So kind of the highlights of looking at the employee benefits of the STRS and PERS and health and welfare benefits. The consortium had some vacancies that they wanted to hold on to for the year and just leave them open. But in doing that, it also left those encumbrances. So as those expenditures did not happen, we see that fallout, especially within employee benefits of $263,000. Staffing was pretty well on target. the services and expenditures we talked about with special ed, and what that is. And then utility costs, we're really starting to track. Melissa has really done a great job over the past couple of years of building an Excel spreadsheet, what is really happening each month. And we're able to now see like what has especially happened with utilities for water in Sebastopol. I mean, we'd seen that it was like $100 more all of a sudden, you know.
Is that double?
Yeah, and some of them, they have been about double. So we'll have that trend and we'll start to be able to see, we've really kind of gotten an eye on to what's happening utility wise. But we had expected expenditures to come in higher for utilities, but they were a little lower. So there was hate to call it savings, but you know, the budget that, you know, wasn't needed in that spot, but we still don't know what's gonna happen with utilities. There was an article about PG&E, those rates are gonna, they're gonna be high again as they come out. So overall expenditures from budget to or from estimated actuals at budget to what was actually when we closed the books, about $2 million less in expenditures than it had expected. So as we move on to the next slide. So the changes into our net fund balance, the savings from the expenditures, we see that increase into the fund balance. And again, that is about that 6% reduction. So we see that 6% going back into our fund balance of $2 million. As we look at the ending fund balance overall, started about $12 million, and now we are about almost, you know, 13.9 million in the ending fund balance. Again, the components of that reduction in expenditures versus anticipated in the budget. Into the next slide. The components of the ending fund balance, as we look at it, we have the revolving cash of still 9,000. Our economic uncertainty 3% set aside at 900,000. The restricted program balances on the next slide, you'll actually see what is the components of that $4.4 million. The various expanded learning opportunities, the lottery, art, music, you'll see what those are on that next slide. But at the end of the day, the unappropriated amount that has not been designated to a program at this point is the $7.5 million unappropriated of the 13 million. So that about 1.5 from budget to actual closing the books. And what that really does is we'll see in the multi-year projection at first interim how that helps in the out years. So it's not like, woohoo, we have this savings now, we can do something with it. It just kind of follows that multi-year projection and helps that out in the out years. As we were looking at, there was going to have to be some cuts of something, you know, 1.5 million plus over the next couple of years. On the next slide, again, it's just the components of that restricted reserve that's there. On the next slide is the unearned revenue that we currently have that will be rebooked at first interim, about $350,000 that will go back in at budget. Not at budget, at first interim. We only budget what the actual anticipated grant award was for this current year, not adding in these funds until the books are actually closed and we do the first interim revise. So on the next is just what's next. We'll continue to review the budget, bringing back the budget update expenditure or revisions each month on an ongoing basis. October 31st is coming fast. I mean, that'll be our next reporting period, that we need to look at as to expenditures and budget revisions that are happening at that point. Bringing that back, for approval in December. And then we just continue the cycle over and over again. And the auditors will be here in October to do the final review of last year. They've already done part of their audit, and they will complete that audit in October, or they'll be that audit to you in January. Hopefully they have to have it done by December. So that is where we are at for unaudited actuals end of 23-24 school year.
Thank you. Job. Doing a little better than we thought.
Yeah, sounds like a good negotiation here.
Yeah.
Well, we just have to look at the whole MYP now, but like we always say about that third year.
That third year.
You two guys can talk about it later. Okay, under actual consideration approval of resolution number 7.
We have to vote on that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
All right. It's getting late, I know.
Really? Any discussion? Then all those in favor of approving the unaudited actuals, please say aye.
Bye.
So approved. Consideration of approval of a resolution number 7 in the matter of adopting the GAN limit. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second. I'll second.
Yeah.
And can you remind us what the GAN limit is and why we need to resolve it?
Was something that was implemented in November 1979 by the voters of Proposition 4. So it places limits on the growth of expenditures for publicly funded programs, including school districts, and set with adjustments for inflation and for school districts with ADA changes in ADA. So each year we have to set that GAN limit, and it changes with the amount of property taxes we receive and how much that we can actually spend. The state has now combined GAN limits for all government agencies, and if an agency has additional allocation through their GAN, then the state can divvy it out accordingly if other districts or government agencies need that. This year, we have an increase in our GAN limit of almost $304,000 that needs to be increased by the resolution. Then the superintendent notifies the director of the State Department of Finance that we shall be increasing our GAN limit 23-24 and 24-25, that we comply with the budgetary process of Proposition 4. So, isn't that exciting?
What a joke.
Okay, does anyone have any questions, comments? All right, this is a roll call vote because it's a resolution. Debbie?
Yes.
Jean?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Human resources, consideration of approval of assignments outside of credentialed area.
All right,
We've got to do the second thing, do we have a motion? Second.
I'll second.
Second, okay.
yeah, thank you, sorry about that. Routine item, you'll recall last month I brought, I believe it was 8 of these forward. Teachers are allowed to teach outside of their credential in these areas. This was one that slipped through the cracks. There was a change around what credentials are authorized to teach theater and acting courses that slipped through, and I caught it after the fact after our last meeting. So just bringing one additional assignment outside of credential area forward for your approval.
Questions, comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Return to closed session.
Please, no.
The meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.